Chapter 21, Back to Essos. Arthur. I arrived in Bravos within 1 day by using my ship. Of course, I used wind and water magic as much as I safely could to speed up this journey. These are the moments where this world's magic truly shows its value. The crew was exhausted and I was too. But I didn't show any weakness as my ship landed on the docks of Bravos. Some blood dripped out of my nose, and the nausea was no joke, and as I stepped out of the ship it felt like I was going to pass out. But I stood tall, straightened my back, and my eyes were concentrated even though everything felt blurry. These were symptoms that probably meant that I had lost some lifespan, but it was something I had to do or the void left in the Iron Bank could be filled by someone else if I didn't move fast enough. Hundreds of guards were on the docks, and people were pushed out of the way. They wore green armor with red hawks painted on their chest plates. They have spears and round shields on them. "Welcome back, my lord." Their loud yells revered through the docks, and people immediately understood that something was about to happen and scattered away. My eyes sharpened at this and I looked towards a certain building that could be seen even from the docks. "To the Iron Bank." I ordered them loudly, talking out my sword and pointing it towards the mentioned building. Immediately they turned around and started marching. None of them questioned my words, just as I had trained them. They simply escorted me to the Iron Bank, and immediately I could see the people around the bank get nervous and try to get away. "Pikes!" I yelled out. My soldiers that now surrounded the building put their shields up and their spears were pointed towards the people. The message was clear: no one would get out of here alive if they resisted. I couldn't rest at all, or someone else will take over the Iron Bank. Which would be disastrous. I do own some percentage of the Iron Bank, something like 10% of it. But I was in no position to even become a member of the council in the Iron Bank. The Iron Bank never had just one leader with absolute power. The institution didn't work like that, but it truly was a shame for them that I had the bigger army. So I made the rules now. They only had 2 choices here: comply or get themselves and their families dead. They weren't exactly in a position where to refuse me. This was a medieval world, there were unspoken rules around here. Well, this would work in the modern world too, so it doesn't matter which time I was in. Certain things would never change. That absolutely, an unspoken rule was that if you have the bigger army you can have anything you want. Just like with America in my last life. The country that spent the most in their military, even the next 10 countries that spent the most in military combined couldn't match it. Fuck. I wasn't even American in my last life, and while the country was far from the best for its people's life, it undeniably had the most powerful army, and the country itself was unable to be conquered due to each of its citizens being essentially a soldier. After all, they had a lot of guns. There was a reason no one went to America and told anything about the debts it had. If it was a weaker country, that would be a whole different story. If you are weak, then it doesn't matter who you want to save or destroy, you can't do anything. As I stood there in front of the mighty Iron Bank, I smiled, looking at the people around me, daring the accountants here to do anything suspicious. I entered the building, and my soldiers protected me from all directions. They are very dedicated. After all, when I get control of Bravos I will make them live luxurious lives and inspire my other soldiers to be like them. I just entered the Iron Bank, no one dared to get in my way, and I just casually went to the meeting room where all of the people who owned any percentage of the Iron Bank would discuss who would be the next members of the council. The bank doesn't have a standing army and usually hires some sellsword company to protect them when Bravos was ever in danger of being invaded. They also had the faceless men do their dirty work, so there is that also. When I entered the chamber, some people looked at me, a couple were shocked, showing that they had gotten news of my death. "What? Kill them all," I ordered, not even waiting for anyone to say anything. The guards immediately went to kill them. The people tried to fight back, some begged, but it's a shame. I don't like leaving any loose ends, and their families will soon be killed too. From the children to the elderly. I don't hate them or their families, it's just business. After killing them I split my guards into groups led by my most trusted personnel to go and kill the families of the people who had a part in the Iron Bank. But I still took half of my guards. And went towards the Sea Lord's palace. The ruler of Bravos. It was a sprawling building that houses a menagerie of exotic beasts and birds. I knew that as I had been here a couple of times before. The Sea Lord was the leader of Bravos. The Sea Lord is a non-hereditary, elected position. Once elected, they serve for life. We are taking over this place. He has around 60 guards that protect him, and I had half of mine. Which is 450 soldiers, so for every soldier he had, I have more than 7. I must say, I liked my odds. Anyway, I needed to take control of Bravos in 1 day, or my enemies could band together and might hire some mercenary group or something like that. After today I must have 0 enemies in Bravos, that was the only possible alternative. I go towards the Sea Lord's palace. I saw that the guards at the gate were not nervous. The news must have not reached him here. So I took this chance and ordered my soldiers. Charge. I stayed in the back and saw them go through the palace like a hot knife through butter. Killing anyone in sight, children, servants, women, elderly, it doesn't matter. Any of them could be someone disguised and could escape from here. This was the safest course of action for me. After it was all done and finished, I spread my guards a little thin, but I completely took over Bravos in a single day. But there was one more problem. I take over 50 of my guards, together with the 3 of the faceless men on a carriage inside cages. Then we all went towards the House of Black and White. Since the building sat by itself on a small island in Bravos, we all took my boats and surrounded it. Then I, together with my guards and the imprisoned faceless men, we all arrived there, and one of my guards knocked on the door. Soon after a couple of seconds, the door was opened and a man covered in a black robe came out. He had a pale face and blue eyes with blonde hair. He just stared at me emotionally, saw my guards behind me, but still spoke with no emotion on his face or voice. "How may the man help you?" I just gazed at him and gave a signal to my soldiers, with a wave of my hand. My soldiers brought 3 faceless in chains, in front of me. I kicked their back of the knees, then they fell with their knees on the ground, and I just looked towards the House of Black and White. "I want you to stop taking orders against me or else." I went towards one of the faceless men, grabbed him by the hair, took out my knife, swish, slashed his throat from ear to ear while I just looked at the guy in front of the gate. Gurgle. The man with the slit throat choked on his blood as he grabbed at his neck, to try and stop himself from death. But in the end, he died. Then I just kicked the guy that I killed down to the ground. His dead body laid there without any emotion on his face and his eyes wide open. And with the bloody knife still in my hand, I shrugged casually towards the man that had come out of the House of White and Black. "Listen, I am a nice guy. I don't want to kill needlessly. I mean, you guys are really useful and I don't want to get rid of you." The guy at the gate narrowed his eyes a little. I noticed that with my hawk vision. "Then what is it that you want?" the doorman just calmly asked. I just smirked a little. "Well, now from you I want to not send any more assassins after me. So I don't wipe you out and you don't kill me. That sounds fair, right?" "I mean, to me that sounds fair. Right, friend?" Before he can answer, I just pat one of the chained faceless men on the head like a dog. I mean, I was going to torture these guys to learn your face stealing techniques, but I thought, hey, that seems kind of rude to my soon-to-be friends. So I didn't do it. "We are friends, right?" The guy at the gate still had a calm face and muttered. "We accept your proposal." My smile widened. "Well, welcome to the family, pal." I climbed up the stairs by myself and arrived in front of the door where the faceless man was standing. Then I just hugged him. "Welcome, my friends, it was nice to know you all." He doesn't hug back or have any emotion on his face. Then I look at my soldiers. "Hey, release our new friends, we are all together here, come on now, don't be rude." The faceless men were released from their chains. They have emotionless eyes. As they went forward towards the House of Black and White, I started walking towards my soldiers with a smile on my face. When the previously captured faceless men arrived at the doorman, I just look behind me and see. Fwish! Their throats are slashed by the doorman. As expected of the faceless men, failures aren't exactly rewarded. Anyway, now that I solved this problem, I just had to take care and stabilize Bravos. Then I was going to get some benefits during Robert's rebellion. A smile appears on my face as I think. I kind of like playing this game. I sent a look toward the doorman. "Come on, bitch, I dare you to act. Do you have the balls to risk it? I will slaughter your whole House of Black and White. You might be assassins, the best amongst your kind. But they were still human, and armies would crash and burn the House of Black and White to the ground before they could do anything. Also, if they aren't useful, I could destroy them then too. Keeping an entity that didn't listen to me here would be disadvantageous. So they better listen and understand what was good for them." Chapter 22, Robert's Rebellion. Arthur. After the business with the House of Black and White, I immediately started walking back to the mansion that I had in Bravos. I needed to rest or I would pass out from the overexertion. Magic was a bitch. As soon as I reached my mansion, the maid was there to greet me. "Welcome back, my lord." The head maid, the pretty thing with green eyes and dark hair, looked at me lovingly. I smiled back and nodded. I and this woman had a child, but honestly, except for her background, we rarely ever did anything more than fucking. I just walked past all of the maids, whispering to one of them, "Bring a new maid to my room," and so I went to my bedroom and immediately laid down on my bed. Today would have been a good chance to kill off all the faceless men and get it over with. But sadly, things weren't that easy. How many faceless men were around the world? As soon as I destroyed their headquarters, each of them would be out in the hunt for me, and that would be tiring. They might even decide to kill off my whole bloodline. This was why I hated situations like this, because I had an army and could wipe the bastards out. It wasn't beneficial at all, especially at such a time. So instead, having them as friends would be better. They didn't want their headquarters destroyed either, but if they dared to try and assassinate me once more then I had no other choice but to go and slaughter them all. I will burn their gods to the ground if I have to. They knew that, or at least they should figure it out soon. I wasn't someone they should mess with. Though once I have enough power, then I will still kill them all. Having an enemy who tried to kill me still alive made things very uncomfortable. Though technically, I did kill the men who attacked me, this wasn't something that could be solved by a technicality. I winced as my heart suddenly started beating rapidly like a rabid dog. It hurt from how fast it was beating. Fuck, this bitch a magic. If you are gonna be such a pain, at least be more useful. It felt like I was going to have a heart attack at this rate, so I took a deep breath and went towards one of my drawers slowly, making sure that excessive movements don't raise my heart rate. Taking a flask that contained a small dose of strange liquids, I took a sniff of it and a heavy sense of sleepiness hit me. This was something I had made in case I was assaulted in my room by many people and I had to run away. I would have used something stronger than a sleeping bomb, but this was the strongest poison I could build a tolerance to. After all, throwing thin in the ground and knocking myself out too would be silly as hell. The sleeping potion slowed my heart rate down considerably and it stopped hurting. Having lost lifespan was a little regretful, but the return had been worth it. By the end of the day, Bravos will become mine and so will be the Iron Bank. Now saying that I had infinite money would be a lie, but with the Iron Bank and the monopolies I had managed to make until now, it was pretty damn close. Even the Lannisters who have had time for thousands of years to store their money and lived in a gold mine were poorer than me. TCH, thinking about it brings me excitement more than 1,000 whores could. Beautiful women are temporary, so their looks fade with age, but money lasts forever if you manage it right. Also, money can get you as many women as you want. Okay, I need to calm down and not get excited or my heart rate will increase. Let's think about something other than money. Yeah, how about magic? Such a mysterious and complicated thing, but at the same time it was a very simple thing. I could feel my physical fatigue and my body felt like I had run a marathon half to death. I almost overused my magic and tapped into my lifespan while rushing here. If I had been 2 days later they would have made their decisions and I would have had to quietly assassinate them. That would have taken a lot of time, and by the end, I might have even lost. Plus I had to keep hypnosis on my ship's crew for them to not notice me. The amount of mana, well I call it mana from the terms of the RPG games I used to play. But it was more like a fire that allows you to affect the world in certain ways. Like physical stamina, but in a magical way. And it took a long time to regenerate it. This will take me weeks before I am back at full capacity. Magic in this world truly is a flawed thing. Then as I am lying down on my bed, I hear the creak of a door. I saw that it was one of my maids. She had blonde hair with purple eyes and a nice and busted body. Those types of eye colors weren't natural back in my first world, so I do have quite a liking for them. She just looked at me with a smile on her face and said, "How have you been, my lord?" Damn, she reminded me of my dumb secretary in my past life. She always acted just so stupid. The only reason I hired her was that she was hot. Some poor guy even married her. Well, I still had continued fucking her even then. But my condolences went to the guy. I had met him a couple of times. If a girl seems too out of your league, then she is. I had learned that lesson from fucking the guy's wife. Honestly, I wasn't into fucking other people's wives, but if they had pretty wives and the opportunity presented itself, then I was okay with that. Though, this world was different. I had learned from my first life, don't fuck with people you know nothing about. So while I was tempted, first I asked the maid, "Are you married? I don't wanna fucking die from some jealous husband." Still will fuck her though, but I will also kill her husband and make it seem like an accident so he doesn't get in the way. "No, my lord," she bowed politely and started taking off her clothes. "I am unmarried and have no family. I was picked up from the streets by your people and brought here to work as a maid. I only have a sick mother at home." Damn, I didn't ask for her life story and I don't care about it either. So I decided to interrupt her before she could continue blabbering. "I have had a tiring day, so you will be doing all of the work. If I fall asleep halfway through it, then don't wake me up. Honestly, I just wanted to have some fun before sleeping and the maid in front of me was pretty, but not someone worth my attention, and I had my hawk keep an eye on things in case anything happened." The maid looked at me with a frown, insulted that I would fall asleep in the middle of a session with her. Sadly, it's the truth because today was too tiring. If you can make me lose the past 20 minutes without sleeping with pleasure, then you will get a year's salary as a reward. Once she heard that, she smiled lustfully as a greedy look appeared in her eyes. "Let's have some fun, my lord." "Yes, that was it, young lady. Get more excited so that way I can suck off some of your life energy. There was a technique from Asai that should help me get rid of the fatigue and help regenerate my mana. It had some side effects on whomever it was used on, meaning the maid in this case. But I didn't care, plus I was giving her a year's worth of salary, what more could she ask for? After spending some quality time with my new lover, She was the one to get tired first while I sucked off her life force. She probably lost a couple of years of lifespan just so I could regenerate my mana faster. I just looked at her, lying naked on my bed. If she was born in my last world with her looks, she would have been a top-class model. It was such a shame. Then I just got up, put some clothes on, and got ready to call a meeting. I was already fully dressed, and now, it was time to prepare for Robert's rebellion. Only a couple of days have passed since I left Westeros, but things there right now are already in a complete mess. First and foremost, I must hire sellswords and let them be meat shields in this war. No way I was sacrificing my men needlessly in this war. Also, if the whole mercenary group is eliminated, then I won't have to pay them. After all, who would I pay if they all went out and died? Their ghosts? I don't have that kind of ability, so I will keep their money safe with me. Even if any of them survive, they can have accidents. Though I was rich, those who waste money needlessly will not have it for long. After taking care of something in Braavos, such as killing anyone who dared speak against him, Arthur was able to rule the richest free city with an iron fist. Anyone who got in his way was tied to an anchor and dropped on the sea. Rumors started spreading that the bottom of the sea was filled with men who had opposed Arthur. His ruthless demeanor, especially of even exterminating the families of anyone who dared go against him, put everyone in line. Power, absolute power, that was what made the people obey. But even during these days, new policies were written and business started booming under Arthur's command. So the merchants weren't complaining any longer and instead went full on to support Arthur. Some did so die to the earnings while supporting him because they were afraid of him. It took 1 month to eliminate every uncertain factor in Braavos, and Arthur's ruthless ways had earned him a lot of authority and fear in a short amount of time. But Braavos had never been better before, as Arthur used his knowledge of civil engineering in the past to revolutionize the city at breakneck speeds. Hundreds of years of improvements were done to the city within a month. While in his previous life Arthur had used a lot of tricks to get up the company ladder, as a civil engineer, he wasn't the best out there, but he was good. Good enough to become the head engineer after the previous one got fired in a big company. Cement, ceramic, porcelain, etc. Things that should have been discovered yet, but were aesthetically pleasing, were poured into Braavos endlessly. With tens of thousands of people as a workforce, things were built very fast and people worked around the clock. In truth, to Arthur, this whole rebellion was a big gamble, as it could go both ways. In canon timeline, Robert had won, but that wasn't something guaranteed, as even then he had barely won and was heavily injured. Also, this was a war, he might die before he was able to even do anything. Arthur would choose Robert's side, he was the man he had bothered to create a good friend. But if this rebellion failed, his backfall would be Braavos, and he was preparing to hole himself here to survive the Mad King's wrath if that happened. Also, newly made ships were pouring out of Braavos rapidly, and some were even new models that were never seen before. Especially, ships for war. By using magic, Arthur made sure to create certain machines that could be hidden from the public eye. Though due to the magic, it was something no one else would be able to create unless they knew modern engineering and magic on top of that. Since he had control of the faceless men, he made them find out the spies that were in Braavos and offer bribes. If they didn't accept, then it was just another body added to the bottom of the sea. His hawks were also joining in the spy mission. Slowly, like a puppeteer, Arthur was able to control everything within Braavos, and anything that happened in the city he would know about it. So no matter what, his workshops weren't getting monitored and his secrets weren't going out there, he made sure of that. By the end of it all, Braavos had grown a little bigger, and Arthur had gathered 10,000 soldiers with him and hired another 10,000 sellswords. 5,000 soldiers were left in Braavos to keep the place under control and keep the peace. Just in case anyone got any revolutionary idea, he would crush them. Jon Arryn POV. Staring at the walls of Gulltown, I couldn't help but feel a sense of uncertainty in my heart. Could we win this war? These doubts reign over my mind and I couldn't even sleep sometimes. Visions of the Mad King burning us all alive predominated through my thoughts. Only a fool wouldn't feel afraid at times like these. But at the same time, this wasn't a battle that I could abandon so easily. Too much was riding on our victory. But first, we each had to settle our disputes within the North, Riverlands, Vale, and Stormlands before we could do anything else. We wouldn't want our enemies to attack our backs. When the Mad King requested Robert and Ned's heads, I contemplated sending them. Who wouldn't? The Targaryens were a feared dynasty for almost 300 years now. But they didn't have dragons any longer, their source of fear wasn't something that could be brought back any longer. Mark Grafton, that son of a whore, was the main problem here, and the army he had fathered in Gulltown. Eddard was supposed to take a ship here and go north, but instead, he now had to go and make his way home. Hopefully, he isn't killed by bandits on the road or captured by any rogue troops. We had to break the Gulltown defenses if we wanted to win this war. But how? After all, leaving this port alone would mean that the Mad King's army could be transported here. That would be an obvious weakness we wouldn't be able to do anything about unless we take back the city. Sighing, I went back to camp, with my guards following me. Turning towards one of them, I said. You, go and notify the other lords that. Lord Arryn. Lord Arryn. Suddenly, a soldier's call interrupted him. Who do you think you are to call you lord out? One of the guards pulled out his sword and was ready to slay the man. But the soldier got on his knees. My lord, I am but a scout. I have big news. There are hundreds of ships around Gulltown, my lord. My heart dropped at that. Had the Mad King somehow gotten even more ships? Chapter 23, Battle of Gulltown. As soon as Jon Arryn heard this he was a little panicked. Even though he had confidence in breaking through Gulltown's defenses with time. If they got an influx of soldiers and supplies he would be the one at a disadvantage. But he still looked at the scout and asked. What banners were the ships flying? A red hawk in a dark and green field, my lord, answered the scout a little nervously. The man was just a peasant who got roped into this war thing that had nothing to do with him. He even had 3 sisters to take care of back home. His father also died in a war like this and he wasn't exactly enthusiastic about fighting, that is why he accepted being a scout. But what choice did he have? When he hears this, Jon Arryn frowned in confusion. He had never heard of a banner like that. Then suddenly another soldier comes into the strategizing tent. My lord, an envoy from the ships has come to speak with you. Jon Arryn just covered his map with military plans on it, and then he said. Let him in. The guards nodded and one of them went outside. Then a man in full light armor comes inside. He had short, almost all grey hair and a grey trimmed beard. He just looked at Arryn, bowed, and said. My lord, my name is Davos Seaworth, I am sent here as an envoy of Arthur Redhawk, he was also known by the name Arthur Frey here in Westeros. He has said that he is here to help Robert Baratheon, he has brought 500 ships together with 20,000 soldiers to help you all. When Jon Arryn heard this he became overjoyed. Having the number of ships and men that Arthur offered could be a decisive factor in this war. Though on the outside, Arryn only had a small smirk. Even though Jon was a little skeptical of this. He still asked the question. How does Arthur Redhawk plan on breaking through the defenses of Gulltown? Davos just looked a little unsure as he tried to explain. Well my lord. Lord Arthur hasn't said anything about the strategy to me. But he did say that he will hand over Gulltown to you by tomorrow. I was just mostly sent here to reassure you that we don't have any hostile intentions. Arthur. I sat down on the chair in my cabin on the ship. My room was as minimalistic as it could be, there weren't a lot of accessories. Just a simple bed and a simple wooden desk and a chair that is covered in wool and made comfortable. I just sit down and pull out a small vial full of dark grey powder. Gunpowder, I didn't remember the exact formula, but I knew the gist of how to make it. I had figured out the exact ratio between the ingredients finally. Gunpowder, also known as black powder to distinguish it from modern smokeless powder, is the earliest known chemical explosive. It consists of a mixture of sulfur, S, charcoal, C, and potassium nitrate, saltpeter, KNO3. The sulfur and charcoal act as fuels while the saltpeter is an oxidizer. I will not introduce this world to any gunpowder or anything like that. Not even my soldiers will be equipped with any type of weapon. That was way too dangerous. I was pretty much asking people to use it against me if I ended up doing something stupid like that. But will I still use gunpowder to my advantage? Obviously, yes. I was the smartest man in this world just because of the knowledge that I possessed. Well, maybe not the smartest, but certainly the most knowledgeable. Well, that was unless other people were reborn here. In which case I will kill them all. Because they would be a bother to my plans. I don't care if they were even a close friend in my last life, people change with time, and I wasn't taking a risk. Anyway, I will use modern tactics to deal with this problem. I might not know everything about politics and such. But I knew that magic had been my crutch during these times. Though, if I do know something really good from my past life. It was physics, buildings, and destruction. Essentially, civil engineering, which was my job. Humanity in my last world created weapons with the ability to destroy a city in the blink of an eye. If I didn't know how to destroy a wall I would be ashamed to the last world. I called 10 reasonably trustworthy men with me and I told them their job. You guys just need to dig underground and stop when you dig under the wall. Then I started explaining to them the job that they would do during the night and how they should do it. Where to put the support wooden pillars and all that. They all had a little experience in digging and mining, that is the main reason why I chose them. Also, they were stupid enough and wouldn't notice the small traces of magic that would be used to dry the earth so it wouldn't cave down. Then they went to the shore by boat to dig. I followed them by looking through the vision of my hawk. When I saw that they started digging I called my army and got ready to attack. Soon I just notified the whole army to be ready for an attack. I only took 50 of my guards and the 10,000 meat shields. I mean sellswords. They are the expendable soldiers that will be bleeding for my benefit. As darkness came about, and the moon rose in the sky. We all got ready to attack. At night time they all get ready. We landed on the shore and went to attack Gulltown at its north wall. As we got closer, there we saw the wall. As expected, our enemy noticed us. Soon, their archers were all along the wall. I just smiled at them. The miners were digging underground, they were happy. Soon they will finish this job and be done with it, and Arthur would pay them a hefty reward. As they were digging, "Ciu." A bird loudly chirped, then the workers turned around to see what it was and they saw a bird holding a candle. No. At least that was what it seemed to them, a sizzling red candle that was burning quite fast. What the hell is that? Anyone with modern world knowledge would be able to tell that it was dynamite. None of them knew how dangerous that small candle could be. Boom. The explosion wasn't big. Because Arthur doesn't truly know how to make anything truly lethal like a real bomb or a stick of stronger dynamite. He used this one, which by itself doesn't have anywhere near the power needed to destroy the thick wall. But underground, where the only thing holding up the wall were some sticks. People can't see something like an explosion at all, so there is no way they would figure out gunpowder just from that, or even know about it. Arthur was making sure that no one knew about gunpowder and erased all traces of it. Above ground, in the darkness, the sellswords were waiting for something to happen, and even the people in the walls were confused. They had everything ready for a siege, and even if they attacked they would be losing their lives. Boom. Suddenly, the walls just fell as if they had no foundation. Arthur's smile widened at this and thought. The medieval walls were strong at the time they were used. But their foundations aren't deep, so making them fall is just too easy. He contemplated before unsheathing his sword and yelling out. "Kill the enemy!" The people that were holding bows and torches atop the wall had fallen down, some were dead on impact, but some had survived. 2 of my men blew into some trumpet horns, giving out a signal to the rest of the soldiers to move. My orders weren't heard through the army, but this would give them the signal. 10,000 men rushed past me like a raging wave. I could see their bloodshot eyes, and everything seemed to slow down as the smell of battle pricked my nostrils. The first to die were the men that had been atop the wall when it had crumbled down. My men yelled out like barbarians to pump up their spirits, and I noticed that the sellswords were calmly cutting down people. Their war cries could be heard even from far away. I was at the back end of the army, with my 50 personal guards. The real reason I was even here was to give my men the impression of me not being afraid. I was sending in mercenaries and didn't care how they felt. But I for sure do want some of them to die while taking over the city. The sellswords were made up of smaller groups of sellsword companies that came together to get the job that I had offered them. After all, I do pay quite the hefty price. I just watched all of this from the ground far away from the battle. Gulltown only had around 1,000 soldiers holding it. So my mercenaries outnumbered them 10 against 1. I liked these odds, plus attacking them at night where they weren't expecting an attack or their walls to suddenly crumble. Yet, the odds were overwhelmingly in my favor. This battle should be over in around half a day. And after half an hour, the mercenaries will start raping women, and after another couple of hours then they will be back to their senses. Rape was a cruel, but normal thing during war. That was true even in my last world. During the wars, there was a lot of it going on behind the scenes, the things that the media wouldn't report. I closed my eyes, changing my view into that of my hawk. Seeing things from a bird's point of view changed things a lot. Even though it was night, I could see the killings and the blood of people painting the streets red. I saw the panic of the civilians, the screaming. Some were begging on their knees for the soldiers to have mercy, some good men didn't do the unspeakable. Then others raped and killed indiscriminately. Evil and good, how ridiculous, they were both the sides of the same coin. The world isn't black or white, but a disgusting shade of grey. When you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die. So that is why I will use cheat codes. Chapter 24, End of the Battle. Arthur. Just like I had predicted, after the sellswords I had hired entered Gulltown, in a couple of hours they were able to completely take over. It wasn't as easy as I made it look. After all, Gulltown was a city surrounded by mountains in almost all of the directions, and the only way to put a real army on land was in the farms around it. Then there are the strong walls that protect the city in case of that too. I was able to take over the city so fast because I was using some modern tactics to deal with it, plus homemade dynamite. Also, I told the mercenaries not to destroy too much. Gulltown should still be intact by the end of it. If not, well, heads would start rolling. Those mercenaries were paid for this, and if they couldn't follow orders, then I will use this as an opportunity to make an example out of them and their families. I don't care if they rape or kill civilians, even Jon Arryn, who was such an honorable man, wouldn't care by the end of it. After all, even Ned Stark, in the original timeline after the sacking of King's Landing, was mostly worried about Elia Martell's children and how they had been killed. So even now, if the ports and ships were burned, or the rich merchants died, then Jon Arryn would care. As long as the whole city wasn't massacred, then he wouldn't care too much. Everyone had a price, and some people were easily replaceable. That was reality. Especially for the people high up, if a celebrity died, the news would cover it, and many people would be sad. Someone else dies, and the world won't care. Reality was cruel, but it couldn't be changed. So I will simply use it to my advantage. Lord Arthur, Gulltown has been put under your control. A soldier came and bowed in front of me to report the matters. He was one of the captains in the sellsword companies I had hired. Also, as you have requested, we made sure that nothing was looted, or burned. Good, nodding at him, I walked and my guards followed me. I will check for myself how good of a job you did. Make sure I don't see anything unsightly. I didn't need to threaten them, they knew the reputation I had built up by now. He wasn't the only one in danger, but their families and loved ones too. As Arthur entered Gulltown, the streets were littered with blood and bodies. Mostly dead soldiers, but some civilians were amongst them too. The buildings were pretty good too, in comparison to the rest of Westeros. Arthur made sure to try and memorize the weak points in the buildings. Just in case he needed to destroy the city in the future. He didn't have qualms about the Vale always being on his side, so instead, he planned to pick his fights and make sure he had an advantage whenever he fought. Arthur didn't mind the blood on the streets and kept observing for any damage done to the city. Except for the people, of course. Surprisingly, the damage done was very little and the people could easily be replaced. So up to this point, it was all good. But as Arthur was walking, suddenly a child, who couldn't have been more than 12, blocked his way. He had a hateful look in his eyes as he glared at the soldiers in armor. The child had tears in his eyes, and he used his bloody sleeve to wipe them off. The child pulled out a small kitchen knife and charged toward Arthur with a determined look. You killed my mother. His voice was filled with despair. Due to his young age and voice, the child's gender wasn't something Arthur could tell. But even with his bravado, before the child could even get close, one of the guards went and pulled back his spear. Fwish! The spear pierced the child's eye and exited the back of their head. The corpse fell on the ground as the soldier pulled his spear out of its eye and blood oozed out of the hole. Arthur stared at the perpetrator. It was one of his 50 personal guards. He narrowed his eyes at the guard and the man seemed nervous under Arthur's gaze and was about to apologize. But before he could say anything, Arthur put a hand on the man's shoulder and took out a gold coin, putting it in the man's hand. Good job, that's how you are supposed to protect me. Even the smallest threat must be guarded against. Arthur knew of the child assassins in the world, and there were people like Varys who used children as spies. Now he wasn't here to tell of how morally wrong that was, but Arthur wouldn't punish his guards for killing a kid either. After all, he didn't want them to hesitate when a child assassin came after him. He even rewarded the behavior and incited the other guards to learn from the guard. Then Arthur turned and addressed the other guards. That could have been an assassination, even if it was a kid. By the way, if you ever catch an assassination against me I will pay you handsomely. The guards nodded and some of them smiled greedily at the promise of more money. They would kill a child for money. As expected of savages. But they are my savages, so they are very useful to me, useful enough to keep around. Thought Arthur, nodding at them encouragingly. He didn't care if they were child killers. Why? Because they were his child killers. He didn't need guards with morals in this world. What Arthur needed was greedy and cold-blooded killers. The enemy soldiers who were left alive had their weapons confiscated and were brought in front of their lords keep in chains. The Lord of Gulltown, Mark Grafton, was also already on his knees, with his hands tied behind his back and a cloth sack over his face, so he couldn't see anything. The rest of his family were the same too, from his youngest children to even his wife. But while the situation was bad, it could become even worse. Everyone knew that. Especially Arthur as he walked, with his sword drawn towards Mark Grafton. Lord Grafton, do you know of your crimes? What crimes? The man yelled defiantly. I am just following the king's orders and nothing else. I demand a trial by combat. The fuck you do? At least have some shame in front of your men who died for a mad king and take death gracefully. Arthur raised his sword. He didn't care for the rules of this world and this was a war. He didn't have the time to dilly-dally and play around now. If he gave every lord their trial by combat, he would get grey hairs until the war was finished. Arthur was the kind of man that only followed rules when it was beneficial. Right now, it wasn't. Just when he was about to swing down the sword, the sound of a horse's hooves trotting in the roads rang out. Which made Arthur stop and turn around. There, he saw Jon Arryn on a horse with some guards accompanying him on their horses too. The Lord Paramount of the Vale went towards Arthur and looked at him. I thank you for your help, Lord Arthur. While this sounded polite to the outside eyes, Arthur could see where this was going, and what Jon meant by this. So he smiled and sheathed his sword. It's nothing, I am just helping my friends, Robb and Ned. Though in no way am I a representative of House Frey, that is why I have now changed my name to Redhawk. Arthur stopped for a couple of seconds, observing Jon and making sure the old man understood the graveness of the situation, before continuing. I wouldn't want to drag my family down if things go wrong. I must thank you for that. Putting everything on the line for Robert, or anyone isn't that easy, said Jon, sincerely. He could see that Arthur was risking everything and the side he was backing up didn't have any advantage against the royal army. Arthur had even gone so far as to abandon his family name, which was something no one else in Westeros would do. At least that was how Jon Arryn saw it, but to Arthur, it was a whole other deal. Since he already knew the outcome, to him this was just a chance to get some benefits without any big risk. Also abandoning the Frey name was something that he needed to do anyway, while from other people's eyes that family was strong, but in Arthur's perspective weak and an unnecessary leash around his neck. Being bound to them would only bring problems in the future. He knew House Frey would fall, whether area hastened that destruction didn't matter. But they would fall within this generation of the family, and he didn't want to be anywhere near it. The management sucked. Though Arthur knew how his actions made him look like a good friend, who was very selfless. He didn't bother to change other people's minds and played along with it. This had been his intention all along, clouding everyone's eyes from what he was doing behind the scenes as they stared at his accomplishments. I do not like gambling with my life, thought Arthur resolutely. He didn't like taking chances that weren't to his advantage. Since the world had changed a lot from the one he remembered, there was a chance that Robert might lose this war. Arthur planned to use every method he could think of to have Robert win this war. Once again, I am very thankful to you and glad that Robert has a friend like you. So what are your plans for the rest of the war? Jon Arryn smiled politely. Arthur saw this and smiled back. Well, first I will have to try and take care of the royal fleet. That should stop the loyalists from banding together. Then there is the Reach to take care of, and hopefully, I can take care of them. Jon Arryn nodded. He looked a little worried at the mention of the Reach. With an army of 100,000, they would be the biggest contributors to the Mad King's reign. If Arthur was able to take care of the Reach and keep it occupied for the rest of the war, it would be the same as if he would have handed them the victory. Of course, this at least would even the odds a little. Arthur of course knew better, as he understood that the Reach would just go to starve out Storm's End. If they had joined Rigor in the original timeline, then he would have easily won the war. It didn't matter how strong Robert's hammer blows were because a war between humans was mostly based on numbers. And the strategies Westeros used weren't anything groundbreaking enough that would allow armies to defeat those of major higher numbers. Jon Arryn just nods his head while seemingly contemplating something. That is a good decision. You should use your advantage and try to keep the Reach out of the fight for as long as you can. What about you, Lord Arryn? What will you do now? How will you handle Gulltown? Arthur inquired while his gaze wandered towards Lord Grafton. The message here was clear between them. Arthur wanted the traitor dead, while Jon didn't want to kill the captured lord. Not only had he known him for a long time, but also because that would create bad blood between the House Arryn and House Grafton. Arthur noticed Jon Arryn frown, but he was insistent and still carried on. I would suggest you deal with this in a more permanent way. We don't want any daggers in our backs while fighting the royalists. Jon Arryn's frown deepened and courtly answered. Don't worry, Lord Arthur. I will take care of my people. You cannot tell me how to discipline my men, thought Lord Arryn decisively. He wasn't going to take orders from Arthur and was even getting a little annoyed at the young man's insurance for telling him how he should do his job. Arthur just nodded towards Jon Arryn with a solemn face. I understand, then my armies will be pulling back to Essos, which made Jon anxious at the mention. But Arthur wasn't done as his gaze turned sharp. I don't know how you handle traitors amongst your midst, Lord Arryn. But I am not willing to fight in a battle that would have me always looking at my back and being paranoid. He sighed and shrugged. Then I guess taking Gulltown will be my gift to Robert. I can't participate in a war where we will just let our enemies go. After saying what he needed, Arthur walked away and so did his guards, leaving Jon Arryn with an ultimatum as he looked at the tied-up Lord Grafton and his family. Not even an hour later, just as Arthur had promised, his soldiers were pulled out of town and after resting, they would set sail in 3 days. Whether they would return to Bravos with their fights over or go to the Reach to keep them occupied depended on Jon Arryn's decision. Next day, news of the execution of Lord Mark Grafton reached Arthur's ears as he was eating breakfast. A small smile appeared on his face when he heard the news. Seeing things going my way is a nice start to the day, he thought, taking another bite of bread. Schemes were more up his alley than strategic warfare. The rebellion would have lost 20,000 troops if Jon Arryn hadn't killed Lord Grafton. Whether the Lord of the Vale had seen through Arthur's scheme or not didn't matter. Also, Jon was checkmated too, because schemes like these couldn't be admitted publicly. Because then Jon Arryn would just be admitting that he sacrificed one of his vessel lords for a foreign army. Now Arthur's animosity with Gulltown will be overturned by their hate towards Jon Arryn. The former was from the other side of the sea, so the hate of the family that ruled Gulltown would eventually be stridden away. But their Lord Paramount was always close, just the perfect distance to hold a strong sense of animosity against. Arthur took a sip of water and he couldn't help but think what he would have done in Jon's shoes. Probably would have killed the whole family. But Jon Arryn's honor will never let him commit such acts. Causing the death of 1,000 men in battle is okay in his sense of honor. But killing 5 people was somehow dishonorable? Well, that was stupid. Though in his mind, Arthur thought that things like honor and pride were useless. He loved it when his enemies had it. It always made dealing with them easier. Now, it was time for war, and Arthur couldn't help but contemplate that the Battle of Gulltown would be nothing in comparison to the fight he would be a part of soon. Arthur won't give an inch. While he will fight in this war, it isn't because of charity. Now he has the power to make some requests which people can't exactly refuse. He has power now. He isn't some knight that has to follow what other people say. Chapter 25, The Reach. After some time I finished all of this *T with Jon Arryn and showed my face as participating in the war. Yeah, that is enough for me. I just resupplied and went away while telling Jon Arryn that I will help the rebellion around Westeros by making use of my advantage, the huge amounts of ships I have. My sellswords are a little upset that they couldn't *PE and loot some more, but, during the sack of Gulltown they lost some of their people, so now they are outnumbered by my soldiers who I pay way too much for them to even dream of betraying me. Plus with some of their members dead they didn't have a lot of room to bother me, because might makes right, also I will have anyone that they love killed and all that. Anyway, better go and get me some Reach ships. I already have everything in place and the Reach's army should go and hold siege Storm's End and Stannis. And I will just have a little excursion around their territories, and maybe have some side adventures in there. 2 months later. And just like that a couple of months passed. I spent this time going from Westeros to Braavos. Armies need weapons and food to keep up, and I can provide both, for a price that is. War is truly a profitable business, for me that is. My success in this war has been amazing. I even made way more money than calculated, which is good. Since I have been investing it all to make me even more ships, good ships, way better than the Westerosi ships. I now have 900 ships. I have been doing business all around Essos and Westeros during these times of war. I must say again, the war has been good on me. Even recruited some more men. Now I have 15,000 sellswords made up of different smaller sellswords companies. I also now have 20,000 soldiers. That brings up the army to 35,000 soldiers. With that amount of soldiers I feel confident to enter some battles. It also allows me to have huge impact on the rebellion. Also the mercenaries following me have started seeing things my way. When we departed from Gulltown they were unsatisfied, but now, we have been together for so long and with the huge amount of ships that I have. I made some ships so-called, brothel ships, for tired soldiers. And in the great capitalism way. I own the brothels so the money I give my soldiers mostly comes back to me. Some kids have been born here and there but we just put them in one of my orphanages in Braavos. Since the kids who are born, it is impossible to tell who the father would even be, since each of my whores foo *KS dozens of men a day. I love a monopoly like this. As I am contemplating all of this, I am in my cabin in the main ship. My cabin is pretty decorated, with stuffed bears, lions and some fake plants all around the room. There were also some fruits on my table, where I played with my hawk. I just throw some grapes mid-air and the little guy catches them. Currently I and my 900 ships are traveling to the Reach. I heard from my spies that the Tyrells have Storm's End in siege. They have 100,000 men holding that siege and Stannis Baratheon is inside the castle with a handful of people. The reports say that they already have some food shortages. But since they haven't started eating their dogs and horses, I am not going to give them any food. After all, if I want to leave a larger impact I will need them to starve first and then I will be their savior. After all that would leave a larger impact. Saving them while they are starving is way more beneficial to me than saving them when they are only a little hungry. And just like that another week passed, we finally reached Arbor, an island which is ruled by House Redwine, currently ruled by Pakester Redwine, who is currently away in war, or more specifically he is feasting together with his cousin Mace Tyrell. As my ships closed in I obviously used my hawk to look over the island. I also skin changed with it and saw from its eyes. What I saw was around 1,000 soldiers defending the castle. They obviously have already noticed my giant fleet of ships. Well, they seemed like they wanted to put up some resistance. They are reinforcing the walls and all that. That is good since my men are hungry for battle. That is also one of the minor reasons why I came here, to dampen their bloodlust. I also need to bloody the men and get them used to battles. General POV. The people of the Arbor Island were terrified when they saw the fleet of ships that completely surrounded their island. They would have no way to escape. Their fleet was away, holding the siege at Storm's End. The meager fleet that was left behind was sent to at least hold back the enemy, but it was destroyed in an instant. It was simply riddled with so many arrows that it sunk by itself. The difference in numbers already showed it all. 35-1, that was undeniably the definition of 0% chance of victory. Inside of the Redwine Castle there were knights advising a young boy who was sitting on a round table with his advisors all around. He is the boy Lord Horace Redwine. He is in charge, since his father was away to war. His mother was actually the one pulling the shots here. She was the only female sitting on the round table meeting. There were also 4 other men, the maester, the men-at-arms, and a couple of other advisors. We should immediately surrender, my lord. We have no way of winning this battle. If we surrender, the enemies might spare your life and your family's lives, my lord, said one of them. My lord, we shouldn't show weakness in front of our enemy. We should wait in the castle for reinforcement, said another. We can last at least 6 months with the provisions we have. But with the influx of small folk that will be coming in here, we could last around a month, said the maester, an old man with a short white-trimmed beard. That is why, my lord, we should take precautions and open the gates. Our enemies wouldn't be dreary enough to kill us and rape our women if they didn't get their blood high. And just like that, they all continued conversing and arguing with each other. None of them noticed the hawk, that was in the ceiling just looking at them all, with a strangely intelligent look in its eyes. When the meeting is finished, the one who was advising the little lord to surrender, he was your average black-haired chubby man. He had a worried look in his eyes. After all, from his view, he didn't understand why would anyone even try to anger their enemy who has an absolute advantage. The worst was that he and his family couldn't even escape from here. This was bad, really bad. He could feel his heart start beating too fast. He was panicking, not knowing what to do. He even started sweating. To calm himself down, he started walking towards the walls. He was down in the reeds and he took a shortcut to one of the empty alleys. That is when strangely a hawk made a piercing cry. He instinctively looked towards the noise. He saw a hawk fly towards him and land in front of him. The strange thing was that the hawk had a letter attached to its leg. The man didn't know what to do. But he still decided to try and pick up the letter. While he was still on guard against the hawk, he didn't want to be bitten by it. When he finally got the letter, he curiously read it and his eyes widened. And no way, we see that the MC is expanding his power. He hasn't gotten in any battle where he has a chance to lose. He is very careful in choosing his battles. He is in the Reach now, but why is he there and what is he planning? We will find out soon. P.S. Please throw some power stones. Chapter 26, Problem in Plans. I looked around me. Another village on the arbor was sacked. There were some people in the village who had some conflicts about what we were doing. So they fell silent, because they were killed. Any feudal resistance that was put up got squashed like a bug. Out of the 35,000 men, I only took 20,000 with me on land. The others were on my ships, in case the Reach got wind of what we were doing. Though I already had my hawk kill all of the ravens, so no one would find out. At the look of the village, it wasn't destroyed, their food wasn't burned. The only thing bad they got from it was some bastards popping out because of some of my more enthusiastic men. But still, the island was taken over, so were some towns and all of the ports. Now the only place left is Vinetown, the place where the Redwines have their little castle. I already have an ongoing plan on how to easily take it over. After 6 hours I have everything ready. I just march my army towards the castle. As I look at the castle, I see that it wasn't anything special. Even the walls weren't built that high. I could storm the castle and take it over. But that would lead to a lot of unnecessary deaths of my men. I am currently riding a horse, as are some of my personal guards. I turn towards one of them, I look him in the eyes and say, "Bring me my longbow." General POV. As the guards inside the castle were preparing for the battle, they put wooden reinforcements on the gate and all that. They were all nervous and their hands were shaking, and some of them were even crying while clutching their heads in despair. They were stuck in a castle with a boy lord who knows nothing and his mother who only knows how to play political games, which are useless now. They all felt like an invisible force was suffocating them and they were already dead. Even without Arthur's army attacking, the castle was already in chaos. Men who knew would be dying the next day went into a crime spree, from r*ping, stealing and killing. They had become like beasts locked in a cage. The reinforcements would need at least 2 days or more to come here, and even if they did it wouldn't make any difference. The real army is in the Stormlands holding siege at Storm's End. The dozen of soldiers at the gate were just normal peasants, taken as guards. They had dreamed of being knights of the Reach and all that. But now all of them were in absolute despair. They hadn't even seen the little lord for a couple of days. When even the one in charge was scared, it truly meant no hope for them. Some had already tried deserting, but they were beheaded by the Redwine little lord's personal guards. The guards gave them some promises of knighthood and gold if they held the siege. They tried to raise the morale of the troops, but that coming from the mouth of a guard was just empty words. Even they knew that, after all, even if it was true, what use did gold have to a dead man? But on the other side, the little lord was sitting on his father's seat and was being fed lies by his advisors. "Don't worry, my lord, even if they all storm the walls, the castle of Redwine can hold them all back. It has withstood hundreds of wars and this will not be any different." The boy smiled at this. "You are right, Ludwig. If our castle couldn't withstand a simple attack like this, our family wouldn't have been here for thousands of years, ruling the arbor. But my lord, I think that you giving a speech to the troops might encourage them to look up to you. said the old maester with a raspy voice. But the little lord's mother immediately intervened. I think that would be unnatural, the soldiers already know what they fight for. When she said this, the maester looked at her and thought in his head. This woman, she is just afraid that her son might get jumped by an angry soldier or something like that. The mother truly just didn't want her son to feel the despair that everyone was feeling. Ignorance is truly a bliss, she understands best what would happen to a female like her if the gates are opened. But she still doesn't want her son to get exposed to the world so soon. But what they didn't know was that outside, while the soldiers were feeling despair, the council member, who wasn't there with them, had other plans. He looks at the letter that he got from the strange Red Hawk. If you open the gates willingly, your family will be spared from the cruelties of war. You know how wars go, don't you? William of the Vine Town. By Arthur Redhawk. He had a calm face as he walked towards the soldiers at the gates and said to them. The Lord has ordered to open the gates and surrender. The soldiers look at him suspiciously, but they are all ready to comply. After all, no matter what, they will take the chance to stay alive. But as they are about to take off the reinforcements at the door, a knight noticed this and came towards them while saying, What are you doing? William seemed nervous that he might get his head cut off, if they found out that he was planning to betray them all for his family. He had a moderately successful business on Vine Town, that was why he was in the council of the Lord. But even then he doesn't earn the respect of the soldiers. They all see him as just another copper counter and cheesemonger. MC sure has a plan, doesn't he? Next chapter will be chaotic as it describes the depth of the MC's plan. Chapter 27, Chaotic War. These people don't even understand how dangerous life can be. They look at knights like some type of people of virtue that can do no wrong. But I have seen more knights do despicable things than I care to count, thought William, while despising all of these close-minded people. Sire, I can reassure you that these orders come from the Lord himself. I am one of the members of his council. My name is William of Vine Town, said William, while trying to keep his face from showing the nervousness that he was feeling. The knight seems unsure, but he knew of William. So he just said, I understand, wait here as I go and confirm this with the Lord. SHT, Fouquet, thought William as he was panicking on the inside. He was sweating a lot, but he still managed to say, Of course, sire. The knight nodded and went towards the castle. William decided to take this moment as the knight went away to order the soldiers again. You can take off the reinforcements and open the doors. The soldiers looked unsure of what to do, but they still just looked at each other and one of them said, Sorry, my lord. But we will have to wait for the confirmation. Even though the soldiers were scared and unsure, they were still loyal enough and smart, or dumb, enough to not go against their lord's command. William got even more nervous, so he decided to add, Listen, I will take all of the responsibility if something bad happens. Just open those doors, we don't want our enemies to get the wrong idea and attack us right now. That seemed to somewhat waver the soldiers at the gate even more. But they still disagreed. William couldn't take it anymore, he panicked and screamed. Open the gates, goddamn it, or we are all going to die. He dropped on his knees, tears were coming out of his eyes as they flowed down a face filled with despair. The Lord has already escaped, we are all alone. The Lord has already escaped days ago. William said, No, it wasn't him, but it sounded like his own voice. He looked around trying to find who said that. But when the people heard that, they all panicked. Oh my God, no. Is it true that Lord Redwine has abandoned us? This can't be happening. Chaos ensued all around. The peasants were running all around, like headless chickens, not knowing that they were in the prison. The castle wasn't there to protect them, it was prison keeping them from running away. Suddenly, while everyone was panicking, another soldier had a letter on his hands and a complicated look on his face. While all of them were panicked, he went towards the gates, took down the reinforcements on it, just some wood beams that keep the gate from collapsing in case rams are used against it. As he was about to take off the huge beam holding the gate from opening, he heard someone say to him, What are you doing, soldier? He turned around and saw a knight with his hand on the handle of his sword as he got close to him. But the soldier still had a face full of conviction. He is just your average day peasant, and his sister and little brother were being held hostage by Arthur Redhawk. He had no choice. He got a letter last night with the names of his sister and little brother. His father's head also was dropped in front of him by a hawk. I can't let them die. So with it he turned around to the door again and opened it. Swish! He felt a sword pierce him from the back. He looked down and saw the tip of the sword that had gone straight through him. Bam! He fell to the ground, and his vision went to dark, not knowing that his sister and brother had long been killed by Arthur. After all, why would he bother himself with them? They had already outlived their usefulness. He was just another pawn in a game. The knight looked as the door slowly opened and a loud scream came as the door was swung open, and the enemies came in. The last thing he saw was a sword as his head flew. Even William of Vine Town, who liked to think of himself as knowledgeable, when he saw this, he finally understood, he was being manipulated all along. The panic, the doors opening, everything was planned all along and he was just another pawn. Then as an arrow flew towards him and Puchy. The arrow pierced through his eye, and came out at the back of his head. While this was all happening, Lady Redwine from atop one of the towers in her castle saw the chaos that was happening below her, and she also saw the enemies rushing towards the gates like an endless wave of despair. She looked towards the ground and contemplated jumping, then at least she dies with her dignity intact, but she remembered her son, her sweet boy, he will definitely get killed, but maybe if. She just turned around and calmly walked towards the room where her son was. When she arrived at her son's room she saw two of her son's sworn swords were fighting against her son's personal guards. Man believe, if we give up the little sh*t, they might spare us, said one of the guards. When Lady Redwine saw this, she looked towards her son who was cowering while sitting on the throne that has been the Redwine seat of power since ancient times. Then suddenly the doors behind her opened and a wave of soldiers being led by a man on a horse with a clean-shaven beard, short hair, brown eyes, and straight nose came through. He had a banner of a red hawk on his armor. As he rode the horse, it stopped and took a sh*t on the ground in front of the room. Then the man came forward and a small smile appeared on his face as he said, "Well, hello there my lady." The MC used a small illusion magic to copy that one guy's, William's, voice, and speak through his hawk, confusing the people. But he had to use it carefully and at the perfect moment or it wouldn't have worked. P.S. I'm sorry, the last chapter and also this one are very short but that will be changed from the next chapter. Chapter 28, Lady Redwine. As Arthur walks forward he has a smirk on his face as he looks at Lady Redwine. He gets off his horse and walks past her. He goes towards the little boy lord, he just calmly walks forward, as his smirk slips off his face. The little Redwine lord is absolutely terrified as Arthur walks close to him. What should I do with you? I guess putting your cute little head on a pike would send your father a message, said Arthur casually, as if he was talking about the weather. Immediately tears started spilling out of the boy lord and he started crying quietly. "Please mercy my lord, please spare my son," begs Lady Redwine to Arthur. What she doesn't know is that Arthur wasn't going to do that anyway. After all, he doesn't want to build too much enmity with the Reach. He just wants them to hate him slightly. After all, no one can be loved by everyone. If you try to please everyone, then you will really have no one as your real ally. After all, look how Baelish ended when he tried to please everyone. Being too nice isn't exactly smart thing to do in a world like this. I have decided who I want to make my enemy, it will be the Tyrells. They are the perfect target since after the rebellion is over none of them will dare to do anything, because they supported Rigor, they wouldn't dare push their luck or someone else might become the Warden of the Reach. Thinks Arthur as he looks at Lady Redwine, who is already crying and begging him to spare her son. But at the same time, Arthur knows that he mustn't act like a mad dog, because mad dogs get put down. So in the end he simply orders his guards. Put the kid in his room, if he dares escape, we have his mother as our hostage. She will be killed if he dares do something like that. Then Arthur looks at the boy lord as he asks, "Got that little brat?" The kid just rapidly nods in fear. Arthur just smiles. "Don't worry, as long as you behave, you won't be treated badly." But even while saying that, Arthur is planning on how to use his new position of power. Should he push for more and go inside the Reach? After all, Arbor Island is a safe enough place for him, and even though he has a huge army, if he goes inside the Reach, he doesn't know the territory as good as the locals do. Plus, the Reach can raise a new army quickly, because of its high population and their culture that makes young boys dream to be knights. If his army somehow gets surrounded, it will be difficult for Arthur to survive the chaos that ensues during a war zone. One stray arrow and he will be done. Having to reincarnate as one of his save points, children. But if I stay on water, with my fleet, no krakens nor any other fleet in Westeros will be able to fight me. I better make this decision in a couple of days as my men rest. Later evening. After that whole ordeal, the city was taken over and the soldiers of the winning side, Arthur's, they were splurging around. King, newly widowed women and so on. Arthur didn't stop any of this from going on. After all, the soldiers needed to calm their blood after they had a battle. If he forbade them even that, he would have to deal with a revolt in his hands. No soldier, who fights to the death wants to he stopped from even, doing lustful things. Arthur is currently in his new room. It used to be the Redwine Lord's room. But the man is fighting at war, so Arthur decided to make himself at home. The room has a big bed, a big wardrobe table and a comfortable looking chair with cushions. Suddenly the door to his room opens. Arthur can already guess who it was, after all the guards had orders to let only one person in. After that person comes in they are also supposed to leave. As Arthur turned around he saw what he already predicted. It is Lady Redwine, she has her golden hair fixed neatly, with curls at the end of it, her blue eyes look at Arthur's brown ones. Overall, she was a beautiful woman, at the age of 28, She has fair skin and a graceful figure. She is wearing a beautiful red dress that emphasizes her assets. Lady Redwine picture. Arthur POV. When I look at her, a strange smile comes up on my face. I know she isn't dumb enough to try and assassinate me. After all, her son will die if she does so. Also I can't help but think at how young she is to be a mother. She must have had her kid when she was pretty young. Medieval laws truly are something else, aren't they? I know that she is here to try and lead me by my D*K like many Redwine women did, like Olenna Tyrell, née Redwine, did, but unfortunately for her, I am not into it. I can already guess why you are here, now kneel. I order her. My lord, could we? No, kneel. I say as she reluctantly obeys. I get close to her and she immediately knows what to do. As she pulls my pants and boxers down, she quickly goes to work, wrapping those pouty red lips around my shaft as she starts sucking obediently. I just look around the room, a little bored. I have honestly had better blowjobs. I guess I shouldn't blame her really. Only having her dull husband and all that. Now, try to make this a better experience now, honey. I say, grabbing a fistful of her blonde hair and pulling her head closer to my shaft as she takes it back in her mouth, her tongue going back to rubbing against my shaft as she takes me into her throat, attempting to swallow my D*CK. After some time I get ready to come. I am coming. She takes my D*CK of her mouth and started jacking me off. Open your mouth, honey. I instruct her. She slowly opened her mouth and closed her eyes. Then 3 loads come out of my shaft, the first lands inside her mouth, the second in one of her closed eyes and the third in her blonde hair. When she feels that my shaft is still hard, she gets up and starts taking off her clothes. I just go and lie down on the giant bed. She moves slowly, pulling her dress off and letting it drop. Glancing at the door, she seems to be hesitating again, but I just stare at her until she quickly takes her bra and panties off. You. She trails off before she sighs. Are you happy now? She asks, instinctively covering her breasts with her arm. Not yet. Turn around and bend over the table. I order, notice an annoyed twitch in her eye for a split second, but then it is gone. Yes, I know that she is trying to act all shy and embarrassed, when in reality she is a fox. When she turns around, I know that I am getting an annoyed eye roll as she obeys, as she bends over the table, then she rests her arms on the table, her ass sticking out enticingly. I move behind her, and I push my shaft into her wet waiting pussy. She might not like me, but she doesn't dislike everything about this. As I start to thrust into her cunt, she lets out a small moan, not looking back as she keeps staring at the table. Wow, she's drenched down there. You know, I can't tell whether you are enjoying this because we are doing it in this room or because your son is literally 2 rooms away. I taunt as I bring my hand down on her pale ass, getting a yelp. She doesn't even respond, keeping her eyes down as I fuck her in the room her husband was in just before. Sheathing myself in her, I come, painting her womb white with my seed. She clenches down on my cock as I do. Pulling out, I smirk at the sight of her gasping against the table, my cum leaking from her freshly fucked pussy. Lady Redwine stands up, not hiding her flushed face. Will that be all, Lord Arthur? She asks calmly, despite the cum leaking down her leg. She has understood that I know what her game is now, so no ISE acting anymore. Sure. Go pick a room close to my quarters, but don't lock your door. While I am here you don't get to limit my access to you, understand? I understand, my lord. She says as she gathers up her dress and puts it on. With my cum still leaking down her legs. Arthur is willing to anger the Reach, by doing small invasions like this. After all, him and the Reach not having a good relationship will open up new friendships, Cersei, Stannis, etc. Also Arthur is having some fun now. I hope you like Lemon, because this one took quite some time to write. I did a lot of research for this. And to clarify something, lemons won't be often, maybe this might be the last depending on if you want any more. P.S. Lady Redwine used to be a Tyrell, so she was most likely taught by Olenna how to act. But the MC isn't fooled so easily. Chapter 29, The Battle of the Bells. After that little adventure of mine with the Lady Redwine, I was in an amused mood. She was trying really hard to please me and try to lead me by the D*K. But sadly for her, I am not a man who thinks with his lower head, like most of the other highborn in this world are. Also I learned that her name is Jenny, which I will most likely forget once we are out of here. She after all isn't important at all. Also I have decided to have a little fun on the Reach. Most likely the Reach has already started gathering up a new army to try and slow me down in case I decide to attack. I mean, even with my 35,000 soldier army, I am not 100% sure I should attack. After all, contrary to modern warfare where only extreme environments really have any effect in a war staged by modern technology, in here, the Reach could use different maneuvers and their knowledge of the terrain to destroy my troops. They could even pull the Russian tactic that was used against Hitler and others who have tried to invade Russia. They will burn all of the farms as they retreat, leaving my soldiers hungry, and I don't exactly trust my leadership skills enough to survive a revolt from hungry soldiers. Though from what I know, this tactic hasn't been used yet in this world. But I am not arrogant or stupid enough to let myself let my guard down and die. Because if I immediately reincarnated into one of my children, yeah, that wouldn't be good. Not only will I be reborn into a child's body, but I will also lose all of the reputation that I have tried to build. Actually, everything I have built until now would crumble to dust. After all, I don't even have a stable foundation to let my kids land on. So even my kids might get killed by someone under me who will take this opportunity to get higher in the hierarchy. After all, I would be stupid to underestimate the greed and cruel tendencies of humanity. 2 months later. General POV. Just like this, 2 months pass in the blink of an eye. In this time Arthur's navy has completely destroyed any navy on Westeros. Even the Ironborn tried to attack the Reach, and Arthur let them loot around a little before he came upon them like a hammer on a nail. Though he himself didn't participate in the battle, Arthur's influence was undeniable on it, as his shipmaster Davos led his navy, completely destroying the Ironborn and even killing their current head of the house, then having them run away with their tail between their legs. But that wasn't the only thing Arthur did during these 2 months. He stabilized his control over Braavos and used his ships to give supplies to the rebels' side. During these 2 months a lot of skirmishes have happened, but not quite a decisive battle. But even though it was wartime in Westeros, the city of Braavos wasn't truly affected by it too much. Except some fall in trade with Westeros and all that. But it can easily be fixed, since the number of ships that Arthur owns is over 1,000. Plus with the huge wealth that he got from taking over the Iron Bank. Arthur now just needs to digest the riches and new resources quickly, precisely, and put them to use to rise his power even higher. Since he has gotten Braavos under his clutches, Arthur hasn't really tried to expand. Lately he has been managing the new wealth he got and reinforcing his rule in Braavos, not allowing anyone to get any bright ideas like a rebellion against him or something like that. Because if Arthur gets even a hint of that, a lot of heads will have to start flying off. He can't allow any thought of rebellion to develop at all, or just like cancer, it will kill him slowly. He can't really allow even too much freedom of thought or they might get some strange ideas. Arthur was in his new room looking over some reports from his spies. People are like sheep. They follow the shepherd. Managing people isn't that easy. I need something to keep their mind occupied or they will revolt. After all, humans always want better and better living conditions. If I don't keep them satisfied they will simply revolt. Of course none of the lords, not even the kings of Westeros have realized that their days are all numbered. After all, humanity is a race of psychopaths who after they dominated the whole food chain and had no one else to fight they fought with themselves. Humanity is chaotic and thrives in freedom. One day, just like in my last world, there will come the time when humans land on the moon, and beyond. Arthur kept thinking about the different ways that he can keep people under control. His reasoning being that the only saving grace Westeros has from a revolution is their uneducated population who doesn't understand the world beyond their small villages and cities. He understands that Westeros is a ticking time bomb, they only need one man to advocate for freedom and Westeros will be in a new war to end all wars. Well, that is all his plan on how he will represent his persona when the time is right. He knows how it is best to control people without the danger of a revolution in his hands, give them the illusion of freedom. Give them the ability to choose people that represent their interests. A winner doesn't think about how things are, but how they will be. Thinks Arthur as he analyzes a certain report of his spies. So this means that the Battle of the Bells will happen soon. Soon this rebellion will end, I better get the most benefits out of this. Plans Arthur. Robert Baratheon might get a crown in his head but I will get the people's hearts, seems like I will participate in another war soon. After all of this, another week passed, and in the Stony Seps, a small town with not that big of a population. Inside a brothel, Robert Baratheon was sleeping with 2 whores, one on each of his arms. He knew that Jon Connington was looking for him all over town for the last 2 days, he had looked over many houses and a lot of other buildings. But the man couldn't even think of Robert hiding in a brothel, where some of his soldiers even visited here. Suddenly outside, in the city there were sounds of fighting going on. Robert Baratheon awoke and opened his eyes. He looked around and got up. Putting his clothes on, and going outside of the room slowly. He found one of the whores running around, so he grabbed her by her arm and asked her. What is going on? She winced a little due to the power that Robert used to grab her arm. But she was used to pain so she immediately answered. There is fighting going on outside. Immediately Robert smiled and said. Well then, it seems like I might need the warmer again. As he said that, he went back to the room. The world moves even without the MC or when he is not doing something. Also the MC isn't interfering too much in certain situations even though he has the power to, because he wants them to happen and they are beneficial to him. Chapter 30, Ares, the Mad King. But while the Battle of the Bells is happening, Arthur has a whole other situation in his hands as he sits in his new office in Ashford, where the previous lord's room used to be. But more specifically, the problem is in the form of a letter which he is currently holding. Arthur POV. I read through the letter and look at who it was written by. Olenna Tyrell, the so-called Queen of Thorns. But really though, she is used too much dealing with stealthily politics that she doesn't understand the mind of a simple warrior. That was her downfall really, always thinking brute men is below her. I mean, I see everyone in this world as unwashed, filthy, degenerate, uneducated and barbaric people, but I will never, and I mean never, underestimate them. Not even the honorable dumbasses like Eddard Stark. After all, men of honor are almost as dangerous as men of ambition. You never know how far into the realm of suicidal stupidity their honor will push them, and who they will take with them. Anyway, the letter written by Olenna has a dozen threats, and around 2 ways that she tries to manipulate me with this letter. She also continues to hammer down that this is just a silly rebellion with no threat to the Targaryen dynasty who has been running these lands for 3 centuries. Well, it would be right of her to assume so. I mean, the Targaryen have had a mad king every other generation, they still kept their dynasty strong, but Olenna doesn't know what I know. Robert Baratheon will win this war. So I just slowly recite a weak fire magic spell that slowly starts burning the letter. No need to let stuff like that lying around, it could have detrimental effects on me, perhaps a little spider could get his hands on it. I know that I have the spies of Varys under my thumb. But I am not arrogant enough to assume that every one of his spies was found out by me. Spying is the guy's speciality, underestimating him could spell disaster for me. What should my next immediate action be? I have easily destroyed the Ironborn and kept them at bay, though they looted a little as soon as they started getting a little brave and attacked close to Arbor Island. I just obliterated them and killed their leader. Of course Lord Greyjoy dying was a coincidence. Magic truly is wonderful, isn't it? And I had to sacrifice only 10 normal people to use the blood magic. If it was a king though, I would have to sacrifice 100 to 500 people every night, and double the sacrifices at a full moon. In around a year the king should die. Yet, killing a king isn't easy even with magic, even magic isn't fair in this world, and very complex with different rules. Though this is the magic of Essos which comes mostly from old Valyria, and with Ni dragons on the world, that branch of magic is weakened by a major margin. Sometimes I even burn my own lifespan, to do some of the most complicated and stronger spells. But even with all that, I know that 30 well-armed knights could brutalize me with no difficulty really. So magic is more of a strategic weapon for me, and the less people know I have it the better. During the next couple of days I get the news that the Battle of Bells happened, and this is big news for me. I used my bird to spy and saw what really happened. I used skin changing to go in there and see the battle from a bird's viewpoint. Thankfully Robert won without me interfering, so that is good news at least. General POV. The Battle of the Bells devastated both sides of the war. Even though the rebellion came out victorious, even they lost something. Jon Arryn lost his successor for the next Lord of the Vale. But this battle made the rebellion be seen as something more serious in the eyes of the royalist side. So Aerys sent for his king's guard to go and find his wayward son, and bring him back to lead the armies. But that is not all, as he sent other king's guards to rally/organize the men and form an army to battle the rebels. Also Elia Martell was summoned from Dragonstone, to come back to King's Landing, just in case the Martells decide that fighting for Rhaegar, who humiliated their sister during the tourney of Harrenhal, isn't something that they want to do. Now in the King's Landing, the Mad King is sitting on his throne, the Iron Throne, with swords protruding from every part of the throne except the seat. Varys the Master of Whispers looks at the Mad King and sees his filthy appearance, his uncut nails, long and untrimmed beard and his unkempt hair. The king also smelled so bad that even he who is bowing a good distance away from the throne, has to keep himself from showing any signs of the disgust he feels. He wonders how the king's guard and Maester Pycelle, who was sitting on a normal chair next to the king, are smelling from so up close. It seems like this king is no longer the rightful one for the realm. Sooner or later there would have been war during his reign. Sadly, his paranoia truly has saved him, or he would have had an accident a long time ago. Thinks Varys, contemplating who should he support as the next king. But he knows that he has to be careful too. After all, he doesn't want to die by being burned alive. That sounds like such a horrible way to go for him. So I must make myself useful here. I am not a lord, so I can't even get out of this by a trial by combat, plus look how that went for Lord Stark and his son. My king, says Varys, being careful to keep his tone neutral, and not showing anything in front of the madman in front of him. The call that we sent for Lord Lannister has been met by silence. There seems to be no word of Lord Tywin's decision. As Varys says that, he notices that the king's guard, next to Aerys, has a strange look on his face. The kid has wavy blonde hair and a handsome face. He is Jaime Lannister. Or the king's guard who might be killed by the king. Thinks Varys. Jaime, tell me something, says a raspy old voice. It was Mad King, who has a strangely calm look on his eyes. If I were to burn you alive, would your father come to King's Landing? Jaime seems nervous at this. His whole body is sweating in nervousness, he doesn't know what to say. That is until the Grand Maester Pycelle speaks up. The old man is sitting down on a chair to the side of the king. My king, I believe that your old friend Tywin will definitely come and help you. He is just cautious if maybe any spy in the court might give this information to the enemy. When the Mad King hears this, a smile appears on his face as he scratched his neck until the skin broke. You are right, Pycelle, but I already knew that you didn't need to say it, says the Mad King, as his neck draws a little amount of blood from all of the scratching. Varys just looks at this with his emotionless face on, as the king looks towards him. So tell me, Varys, what are your thoughts on this situation? Varys just bows while saying, I never thought of that, my king. I am just a simple spy, here at your service to help you. I can't match your wisdom, so I don't usually make decisions as I don't want to make myself look like a fool. The king laughs at this. Haha, you are right, Varys. The court also laughs together with the king. Seemingly joyous, but everyone in here knows that they are all hanging from a very delicate rope. One wrong move and they will all be burning in wildfire, in front of their families most likely. Chapter 31, Battle of Oldtown. Westeros again is in a period of silence. And that is how it is in a war like this, most of the time is spent traveling than fighting. The crown was gathering the troops for themselves and Dorne sent 10,000 troops to the royal army. So while the royalists were gathering armies, the rebel side was gathering some much-needed allies. Ned and Jon Arryn married the Tully daughters. Everyone was quiet. This lasted for 1 month, until Arthur, MC, POV. I look at the map in front of me. I can't stay inactive, I need to do something. Staying quiet in the war is unlikely to get me benefits. I have already sent Davos to sneak past the Reach's fleet and give supplies to Stannis as he is under siege at Storm's End. I only gave him a couple of small ships to work with. I still didn't dare split my fleet too much, after all the Ironborn and the Royal Fleet are a threat too. I also need to leave some ships for trade to keep my finances up and not start losing money. I mean sure, during war times every lord experiences monetary loss. But that is unacceptable, after all losing money in a war is illogical to me. After all, what am I sacrificing my soldiers' lives for? Well, that is money and hoping to get some land after Robert becomes king. That would help me tremendously. So, I have decided to attack Oldtown, where the Maester's citadel is and where House Hightower rules. In the Reach it is said that the house is as rich as the Lannisters, which is obviously a lie, but still, they must have quite a bit of gold and it is a known fact that they can raise more soldiers than the Tyrell. But most of the men and levies of the Hightower are in the siege of Storm's End, most likely doing nothing. Also I can use that gold to entice my men to stay loyal, as some of them are getting bored. And a bored man with a sword isn't exactly a smart thing to just leave be. I also have to go into the front lines and fight, to prove to my men that I am not some *sy. I mean it is a barbaric way to prove my worth, but in this world what is most desired in a leader is martial power. Which just shows how dumb those people are. Anyway, even if I get hit by a stray arrow and die, there is still the option of me reincarnating as one of my sons. I don't need to fear death anymore. I can do this. For the benefits. I have to pump myself up by enticing my greed first. I immediately call over to the guard outside of the door. Guard, call the commanders to meet in the Lord's room. As the guards go away, I take a deep breath. I am okay and sure when scheming against others and letting others do the work for me. But being on the front lines definitely makes me nervous. Anyway, I dress up and get ready to go to the Lord's meeting room. General POV. In the meeting room, all of Arthur's commanders are there. They are all from men from Bravos who are loyal and handpicked by him to be in his council during war times. They are all in a well-lit room with a rectangular table with the chair at the top being empty while all of the others were filled. Creak. The door are suddenly pushed aside and Arthur strides in with an air of confidence around him. He just goes and takes his seat. The others don't say anything as they know that speaking out of turn in front of Arthur isn't a good idea. The man is very dominant, putting it mildly. He looks at his council members, like a hawk looking at his prey, seeing if they have any weakness. There are 9 men in front of Arthur and they all look down when their gazes meet. Clap. Arthur just claps once loudly, gaining the attention of the people in the room. Well then, I have decided to attack Oldtown. As of now, I want your opinions in an attack strategy. We have 35,000 men and they have around 5,000, but they have well-built giant walls which makes each of their men worth 5 of ours. But my lord, we have 7 men for each man they have. Arthur just looks at the one who spoke. It is a middle-aged man with a neckbeard. But we still can't afford to give 5 of our men for one of theirs either. Come on now, give me some war plans except just the rush at them strategy. Says Arthur looking at his council. I don't pay you for nothing. Start speaking, or you are getting fired. We can do a double attack from both the land and water. We can also use the newly built trebuchet if the need comes. As one of my advisors says that. I smile at him and nod. Beautiful idea. I also have someone that can open the gates for us. If I met them in open warfare, I could use modern war tactics and absolutely wreck them. Thinks Arthur, knowing that he has the greatest minds of his previous world if he wants to command an army. Though he doesn't remember every one of the military tactics used in the Middle Ages in his first world. He remembers the basic and logical ones, which would be revolutionary warfare in this world. 2 days later and Arthur is leading the land army. He is on his horse as he looks at his army in formation. He looks around him and sees his army. He has a powerful look on his face and his back is straight, showing his absolute confidence in this battle. He is also wearing full heavy armor and a helmet. Arthur POV. Looking at the men in front of me, I keep the image that I am absolutely sure of my decision and know what I am doing. Which is bullsh*. T, no leader ever knows what they are doing. They are simply gambling and hoping that those gambles pay off. I just hope my gamble works out, but sadly for other people. I don't like gambling, so I chose to cheat. I can get reborn as many times that I want in any of my legitimate and illegitimate children. I look at my ships coming from the sea, the port is abandoned so that will be easy to take. But I don't want to have to put Oldtown in a siege. I look around me and scream my order to the soldiers. Charge. Immediately soldiers charge towards the walls. Completely trusting into me. I have, like always, manipulated a dozen of farmers to open the doors by threatening their families, that I already killed actually. The cavalry charge with me. I look at the 20 soldiers around me. They are my secret protectors, meat shields, while I fight. Immediately the enemy soldiers start throwing a barrage of arrows. Whoosh. I just pull my shield, which I have in my back and bam bam. 2 arrows hit my shield suddenly. Nay, my horse whimpers and starts falling down. *T, I mustn't get crushed under it. So I just position my body and roll away from it. Thankfully I wasn't stomped, my chivalry charges before me. Charge. I still order my soldiers to charge and not stop just because I fell down. As expected, the giant entrance to the old town opens as expected. Some men with arrows on their backs, they still opened the door. Of course I chose the uneducated and simple people for the job. My army charges through the city, even with my heavy armor I charge, and as I arrive in the city, I see that already fights going on. This is so chaotic. Suddenly I see a man in rags, with a sword in his hand, charges towards me. I am unsure if he is even an enemy. I just charge him too and put my shield in front of me. Bam. I bash him and he falls on the ground. I immediately use my sword to cut his throat. I look around and see that some of my personal guards, and see that only 5 of them are around me. I paid those foo***kers a lot and they still can't keep close to me. I will show them when this is over. Anyway, I loudly call over to my 5 guards. Hey, here. When they hear my voice they look towards me and stay around me. Well, time to go and curb stomp some barbarians. The MC will never intentionally fight a battle that he isn't at least 90% sure of winning. Also the MC knows that soldiers won't fight for someone unwilling to fight for them. So that is why he is fighting, well, more like bravely leading, as he protects himself with his heavy armor and his horse gets shot so he doesn't have to lead. That is why he charged in the front. Chapter 32, Oldtown. Me and my personal guards, just walk around the city. I lead them, but I am extremely careful, though I am good with a sword, that is mostly in tourneys, which is pretty much swordplay compared to war. Plus on there, no one would kick you in the nuts or something like that. But on here it is different, war is cruel and chaotic. I immediately see a horse without a rider in it, I climb on it. Though it is a little difficult with my heavy armor on, it is still not impossible. As soon as I get on the horse I immediately take command of the troops and start giving orders loudly. Go to the high tower, keep, take it over. I give that order and most of the men went there as the others are *ped and did other horrible deeds. When a man is close to death and his blood gets high, he will want to breed, it's primal instinct all the way. The battle rages on as I go with my men to take the high tower castle. As I am riding towards there I see dozens of men in armor and horses charging towards me. When I see this, I whisper a spell. Viola Morgion. Slowly the horses of the men charging me start thrashing around in pain due to my spell. Bam. Dropping them on the ground, that is when we have the advantage, and order my men on foot to butcher them, as I ride past them. But I still use my sword and swish. Cut off the head of one of the men on the ground, who charged at me before. I keep riding after that, not looking back anymore. As I charge towards the castle where the high towers live. While riding in there, with my men behind me. With my heavy armor, I am already a little tired. That is why I am using a horse, to move faster and not get so fatigued. But I am still glad that I wore this armor, or else I am not sure I could get out of this unscathed. Still though, my helmet doesn't keep the foul smell of blood and guts. War really is as gross and as useless as it seems. No wonder in my last world there were no big wars going on. Wars are useless and are just a hole in a nation's treasury. So I am extremely careful and order my soldiers to attack different strategic points. I keep my personal guards as close to me as possible, making sure that no openings appear on the protective formation round me. 2 hours later and the whole Oldtown is taken over. The casualties on my side are around 2,000 men, thankfully, though most of them are the hired mercenaries. Well, that is good. I did send them to the most dangerous places in the city with the highest concentration of guards. I obviously got this information from skin changing into my hawk. I used this to my advantage and worked a plan like this. After all, I do plan for at least 90% of the mercenaries I hired to be killed by the end of this war. At least then I will get my money's worth. Anyway, this place too has an adolescent lord, which I completely disregard and order my soldiers to throw him into the cells and have an around-the-clock supervision. I sit on his throne, and call over a maester. When the maester arrives, I see that he seems nervous. Don't worry, I won't say something as brutal or dumb. Like attacking the citadel, it is a place of learning, and ruining any knowledge in it wouldn't be worth it. I reassure the old maester, who seems to be nervous, and most of that nervousness comes from being afraid of me doing something like burning the citadel. Of course I won't do that. These guys completely poisoned the last dragons and even to this day suppress sorcery a lot. Which sounds amazing to me. After all, I too don't want other people learning magic. So I will support them 100% to suppress people. Anyway, bring me a letter. I will be writing to the Queen of Thorns. I order the maester. General POV. It doesn't take long for Arthur, MC, to write the letter and send it to the Queen of Thorns. And in High Garden, Olenna Tyrell is wandering in her gardens and drinking a delightful cup of tea. She is simply relaxing with no one except her. At least that is until the maester comes with a sealed letter on his hands. The maester starts talking. My lady, it seems like a letter from Arthur Redhawk, and he is about to continue talking, but Olenna lives up to her nickname by simply saying, "No need to talk, dear, I can clearly hear your loud man-fat noises. Give me the letter already and stop being an annoyance." The maester doesn't know what to say. But in the end, he gives the letter to Olenna and he immediately starts fastly walking away. Olenna opens the letter and reads. Well, hello there, my favorite person, the Queen of Thorns. I think that you should surrender now. Oldtown is overtaken by me. High Garden won't be long after. I have an army of 35,000 and until your son returns back with his army will take a lot of time. I would advise you to take a precautionary action and be careful. By Arthur Redhawk. As Olenna reads this, she can't help but think. I feel like I can hear his smug voice just from reading this letter. The little brat doesn't know that 50,000 men are already returning here to the Reach, ready to smash your army to dust. Then we will see how smug you are by then, little brat. The Reach's army has already started to return, and the men to protect their lands from being robbed by Arthur Redhawk. Or as he has started being called now, Arthur the Whisper. He whispers into the ears of soldiers, turning them against their lords. While Olenna was thinking this, Arthur was back in Oldtown going towards the citadel. He walks with hundreds of his soldiers behind him. When they arrive, Arthur sees that the citadel has its doors open and a man with a thick neck and a strong jaw is waiting for him. He is short and squat with enormous hands, a thick chest and a hard ale belly. He has white hair coming out of his nose and ears. He is beetle-browed, his nose has been broken more than once, and his teeth are red. He has a smile on his face as he greets Arthur to the door. Ah! Welcome, Arthur Redhawk, the citadel welcomes you. I am Archmaester Marwyn. It's a pleasure to meet you. Arthur has a polite smile on his face and with an etiquette voice he says. The pleasure is all mine, Archmaester. Though I have problems with the Reach and the Targaryens. The citadel is an institution of learning, where knowledge from all over the world is gathered. Marwyn's smile widens when he hears this. I am glad to hear you say so. Arthur nods at this, but he still decides he'll push on by saying. Still, I have come for a light reading today. I wonder if the citadel could accommodate me. Marwyn looks at the army behind Arthur and knows that he isn't really asking here. He is just informing them of his decision. So Marwyn has no choice but to politely say. But of course, the citadel is a place of learning and anyone can read in here. But for you, my lord, you can read all the books with no restrictions. Arthur steps off his horse and enters inside the citadel with Marwyn as his guide. What is Arthur looking for in the citadel? He seems to have gone in there with a clear goal. Find out in the next chapter of Game of Thrones, Reborn as a Frey. P.S. We see that the MC uses magic, only as a supplementary to him, not brute forcing his way through everything. Don't forget to throw some power stones. Chapter 33, Strategic Retreat. Arthur POV. As I was escorted by Maester Marwyn, I couldn't help but look at the man in front of me. He is unlike any other maesters. He is called Marwyn the Mage. An archmaester who brings whores to his bed, sacrifices to different gods. He has been to the Shadowlands and has learned the different things from the Shadowbinders of Asai. He has traveled the world, and even I can't say if I am more knowledgeable than him in the art of higher mysteries. But I do know that I am stronger though. It seems like his life fire is weak, meaning that he has used spells of high caliber during his life. A person with 100% life fire is a person who has never used the higher levels of magic. I myself have around 90% left, having used strong magic only on occasions. He only has 25%. But I have used more powerful spells myself, but I can steal others' life fire, though the conversation rate is 1:100, meaning one person sacrificed to restore 1% of my life fire. I should do that soon, so I can at least go back to 100%, but it is a painfully long ritual that can only be performed during the full moon at midnight. So I will have to wait. Anyway, as I walk beside Marwyn with 10 guards behind us, I can't help but amusingly ask. So, are the rumors about you true? Marwyn doesn't look at me, he just leads me towards what I assume will be the library. What rumors, my lord? Says Marwyn, with a certain nervousness in his voice. I immediately pick up on that. He must think that I might be like the other lords and kill him because he seems heretical. Well, obviously the rumors about you talking with harlots and witches. General POV. As Marwyn hears that, he can feel a certain chill up his spine. He knows how lords can be, and even if he is to be killed, no one in the citadel will make a case against his death. He was sent to meet Lord Arthur because every other archmaester is scared sh*less of Arthur. Sending a regular maester might make him mad, so they choose an archmaester that is disposable. Marwyn was even afraid of breathing too loudly when he heard Arthur's question. Unknowing how to answer it, but at the same time a high chance of death if he doesn't speak. And if he lies, his lie would shortly be discovered. This all goes through Marwyn's mind in a split second. That is true, my lord. Curiosity has always been a weakness of mine. Answers Marwyn truthfully. Already planning a way to get out of this. I see. Says Arthur, leaving it at that and not talking about the subject anymore. Take me to the higher mysteries section. I don't necessarily like sorcery, but you can definitely teach me how to battle it. Marwyn nods at this. A little relieved, at least now he knows that Arthur won't kill him until he learns of magic. At least that is Haine, Marwyn thinks. Arthur on the other hand has a whole different way of thinking. He is planning on whether to get rid of the man in front of him or make use of the man. He knows that ambitious men can be very dangerous, but very useful at the same time. After all, an ambitious man will work as much as 10 times a normal man. When they go to the part of the library with higher mysteries, Arthur at the corner of his eye sees some obsidian candles. His eyes slightly narrow at that. That could be dangerous. If those candles light up, every maester will know that I am a sorcerer. Arthur just sighs and takes a deep breath and slowly inflates his life fire, BJT, then he seals it, stopping him from having weird life force and making them light up. But this stops Arthur from using magic altogether. Arthur doesn't find anything useful in the citadel about magic, except on the way one can make wildfire, so he memorized that and took some healing and anatomy books. As expected of people who despise magic. I mean, I can understand why logical men like them hate magic. Contemplates Arthur. He knows how wild and uncontrollable magic can be. One reckless move by the children of the forest and the Night King was made. Logical men definitely don't like uncontrollable things. Arthur POV. 2 days later and I get some disturbing news. Not from my spies but from my hawk, who actually does have a certain amount of intelligence. More like a robotic intelligence that only suits my needs, if I am in danger or a perilous situation. They are also 50,000 strong, and with the newly recruited troops that Olenna Tyrell gathered in order to keep me out of the reach, the numbers will reach around 70,000. That is absolutely dangerous to me. They have the number advantage and the one leading them is Randall Tarley. Yep, I am foo *ked if I stay in Oldtown. Damn, my spies didn't even notify me of anything. If I didn't have magic I would have likely been caught off guard. Damn. Tarley is a gifted commander, so it seems like I will need to retreat. Which is a shame since I didn't plan to abandon it during the war, but fighting an enemy with lesser numbers and on their own territory is the height of stupidity. Well, you can't win them all. I better just cut my losses and go back where I can play my own game. I already robbed the high towers blind. I only got around 2 million gold dragons, but that is only because I pay my soldiers very good. Not too good so they can retire, but good enough that they can buy themselves the best of whores. I guess I can't beat the Queen of Thorns on her own territory. She has shut down my spies on the Reach. I know that even spies are still human, so she most likely bribed them or tortured them. Her spy network seems to be better than mine, inside the Reach that is, outside of her homeland is a whole different story. Tomorrow comes and me and my soldiers are all retreating now and going towards the arbor. So we just board our ships, and this time to be sure I use my hawk to look for anything that might seem like any ship or armada that might try and intercept our escape. After all, I do trust my enemy to be smart and have thought of things like this. After a while, as we are about to go right into the deep sea, my hawk notifies me. I immediately close my eyes and look from the hawk's eyes. What I see is a blue sea, with maybe around 100 ships. I frown at this, they must assume that they have a better commander and might be able to defeat my armade with their weaker one. Well, they are right, I don't know anything about ships or something like that. But I do know tactics used by the best military geniuses from my world. Plus I have magic. So as I see that they want to trap me in the land between Three Towers and Black Crown, pushing me back toward Oldtown in a tunnel-like position in which numbers don't matter. Well, that is actually a good move, I can't find a counter. If we go on land we are foo****, and if we stay on water, we will win, but the casualties will be catastrophic on my side. Sadly Davos isn't here, because I know that he knows how to handle ships in battles like this. I just look at my men handling me and my eyes land on a skinny old man who, unlike the other young working soldiers, he is just sitting on the stairs. I just call him over. Jacob, come over here. The old man turns to look at me. Of course, my lord. He is my healer, he doesn't question me, my servants know better than to do something like that. He knows that sometimes I get fevers and such. I of course just tell him that I have a terminal illness that acts up sometimes. But in reality, it's when I overuse my magic. As he gets close he asks in a low voice. My lord, is it acting up again? I shake my head. No, I just feel a slight headache, but you know how that usually turns out. I will be in my cabin, if I don't come out in 30 minutes come and check on me. He nods, and so I go inside my cabin. Inside there is a simple bed nailed on the ground and a simple desk, there is also a mirror on the wall. I look at my face, I see the healthy look on it, with my Tony Stark beard. I like growing it like that. In medieval times there are not a lot of entertainment opportunities. I just lie down on the bed. I close my eyes again and look from the eyes of my hawk, who is above the Reach's armada. Slowly I start incantation. Deep within the power of blood, bring to this moment the forces of water. Upon my life and within my heart I invoke, use the power of water to crash my enemies, crush them, destroy them, let the mermaid's song carry the men to the sea. Suddenly the men on the Reach's ships look around hearing a strange but beautiful song. Make them thirsty. Suddenly some men start jumping in the sea. Let the fish come and devour them. Suddenly the water around them shark fins appear above water, and blood stains the water. The men that previously jumped have been killed by the sharks. I can feel my body start heating up due to my life energy gushing out. I can even feel some pain, but I use the incantation to concentrate my mind. Let the waves rise and destroy them, let the whales come and ram them. Let the drowned god take them to his kingdom. Let the storm come and drop like the wrath of God. Cough. As soon as I said that I coughed out blood. Spells like this are costly, I can feel my life fire drop from 90% to around 5%, almost killing me. But I have my hawk fly away because a storm and dark clouds surround the Reach's ships. Well, I have done all I can now, not a lot of people might die, but they will definitely be pushed away and some of their ships destroyed, this is good enough. I would need around 20 sorcerers together to crash an armada that big. Damn. I can feel blood gather up at the back of my throat and my eyes are involuntarily closing. I might choke in my own blood, as I don't actually have the physical strength to turn around. But I still scream out loudly. Jacob. Calling over my healer, my eyes close as I hear the door to my cabin open. I look and see that it really is Jacob, and just in case I look in his eyes. Making sure that he doesn't have any ideas, I do have his family living in my manor. They are dead if he does something, that is the only reason I trust this man. After I am reassured, I can no longer keep my eyes open and fall asleep. This is the price of magic in Game of Thrones, just to push away some ships and slow them down, he has to almost die for it. He won't be able to use magic of this level for quite some time. Also, I wanted to show that a spy network doesn't make someone omnipotent and knowledgeable about everything, that would be unrealistic. But the MC still has his hawk, who flies around in the MC's orders, and if he sees a ship, army, or something like that, he notifies the MC. The MC used magic because to him that was the best action possible. P.S. Don't forget to throw some power stones. Chapter 34, Don't trust anyone. The healer Jacob looks at Arthur as he falls asleep. He goes next to him and just touches his head and feels that Arthur is burning up. His sickness is acting up. Thinks Jacob, trying to think what would help Arthur. It seems like this time it is worse and he might actually die from the overheating of his body. He decides to get some rags with water atop Arthur's forehead and turn him to the side once he hears a gurgling sound coming out of Arthur's throat. By tomorrow Arthur opens his eyes. He looks around and sees that he is still in the same body and place. His breathing is normal and only has a mild headache and a sudden loss of energy. Which is normal for someone who just lost so much life energy. Arthur POV. As I wake up I can just feel a slight shortness of breath and a weakness assault my body. It seems like this is a little more severe than expected, but it doesn't matter, I have plans against this too. I get up and look at Jacob, who is just sitting on the ground sleeping. This guy is quite loyal it seems. I will give him a raise then. I honestly 5% expected him to kill me while I recover. I don't exactly trust the people that I can't control completely, so that is no one really. I don't trust anyone, so I will never be caught by surprise again, like when I died in my first life. My fleet returned to the arbor with no casualties. It seems like I live another day in this body. I plan to play the Game of Thrones with this body. As I return I just go to the castle, I can't help contemplate that soon the war should be over and Rhaegar will die like the mad prince that he is. Honestly, monarchy is such a **TTY way of ruling. No wonder this world has stagnated so much when only the lords are the people who can be called even moderately rich. I wonder if the Reach's fleet will decide to attack here. I can use that to my advantage and obliterate that threat immediately. As I get off my horse and go towards the lord's, room. As soon as I enter, I see my guards outside and just nod at them. No one is allowed to enter here. Not even Lady Redwine. I am not in the mood currently. They nod in confirmation and I enter my room. But I go back outside and ask the guards. Has Sir Davos come back? Yes, lord. Says one of them. Thanks, Seamus. Then can you call Davos, I need him to help me with a new plan. As I say that to him. He nods. I know everyone's of my personal guards' names. I manage my security team. After all, for an assassin or poisoning to be successful, the best way for that to happen would be to bribe one of my personal guards, but it seems like they will need some more training too. It doesn't take long for Davos to come to me. As he enters the room he looks at me and says. You seem to have become paler, Arthur. I chuckle at that, but my face becomes serious as I say to him. Davos, if I were to die, I want you to take care of my children. I have opened an account in the Iron Bank with 500,000 gold dragons to your name. Davos seems surprised at this. I am thankful for the trust that you have in me, Arthur. But, why? I just grimace at this. It seems like I am dying from a sickness that is making me weaker physically. I have always had this ever since I was young. I hid it from my father and everyone else. Only you and Jacob know of this. So give me your word that you will look after my children. I can see that Davos is startled by this. So your dreams of democracy, a realm where people can choose for themselves. Tears appear in his eyes. The gods are truly cruel sometimes, aren't they? Playing their games on us. I just smirk at this. But I won't die, not until I have completed my dream of liberty and a free population. Where people can choose their rulers. Blood doesn't make you a good ruler. Davos looks depressed from this. He doesn't know that every word I have said up until now is a lie. Just me tugging at his heartstrings, though I do plan for democracy to reign over this world. I do want to enjoy my reincarnation immortality after all. I don't want to have to **T in a bucket for the next 1,000 years. So how long do you have? Asks Davos. I shake my head at this. Unknown, I could die in a year or in 20. But I definitely won't live over 50, that is for sure. I can only hope that by then, I am king so I can become a president instead. Though I told him that, the real reason why I am to live over 50 is due to my overuse of magic. I mean, even the strengthening potions weaken my body tremendously, so by the time I am 50, I will just kill myself and be reborn as one of my children. No one else in this world overuses magic like I do. They use it for petty tricks in comparison to me. I plan to use it even more for strategic plays like I did with the Reach fleet. But I do plan to get the Iron Throne during this life. Then I just wait till the internet is developed and just spend the rest of eternity being slothful, lustful, and selfish. Maybe develop some companies when the modern age comes about. Who knows, maybe by that time I will make a movie about this one life of mine, but of course I will edit it a little. But I plan for my character to be a fan favorite. I will call the show Game of Thrones. Damn, I am getting excited just thinking about this. But first must destroy the Night King and eradicate magic and its knowledge from this world. Only I must be able to use magic. Magic is truly too irregular. Sigh, anyway, that is too far away. I better plan for the present. Davos, I need you to plan a counterattack against the Reach's fleet. I trust this with 100%. He just looks at me. You know that you sometimes have too much trust in me. I smirk at this. I have trust in your abilities. You did sneak past them at Storm's End to give Stannis food. He laughs at this. Yeah, he even offered me a knighthood, but I rejected. I want a brighter future for my son, and I know where to get it. I laugh out loudly at that. Now Davos, don't say stuff like that. It makes you sound too selfish. He laughs too. General POV. 2 weeks later, in the Reach's main ship. Randyll Tarly looks at the incompetent people around him. What use are some dumb weak-minded fools? Thinks Tarly. Obviously he only allows them to be in here because they were lucky to be born in some noble house, or else they would be scrubbing pots in the kitchens. Suddenly screaming can be heard from the outside. Tarly around and frowns. Are we under attack? He walks off and goes up. What he sees absolutely terrified him. 1,000 ships over the horizon. But what really terrified him was the countless projects that covered the sun. Scorpion bolts, thousands of them, we are dead, says Tarly in fear. Immediately he goes to jump in the water. Arthur and Davos on the other hand are using self-made binoculars to see what is going on. Lord, says Davos, being respectful to Arthur. After all, they were in front of the soldiers. It seems like your idea is working spectacularly. Arthas just smiles at this. It seems like this will be another flawless victory again. Davos nods. It seems so. Yet another proof that having someone competent in charge is better than some up-jumped little inbreed lord. Says Arthur, the MC knows how kingdoms will end. Plus he doesn't want to spend his eternity ruling. He would rather do some more fun things. That is why he is trying to push the development of the world. But he still plans to enjoy ruling for a couple of generations. P.S. He plans to eradicate every sign of magic. That goal of his aligns with the Maesters, let's see where that goes. Still, magic isn't a problem solver for every one of the MC's problems due to the catastrophic cost it has. But magic is still a useful strategic tool to him. Chapter 35, Military Mind. Arthur smiles as he sees the carnage in front of him. All of the Reach's ships were completely obliterated. This is the perfect result he likes. He hates fighting enemies, he would rather *CK them, because that is what he is good at. Arthur looks at Davos and says, go and take some men and capture every single survivor. Kill any who don't comply. Spare no life, and be careful. You are worth 10,000 men to me, Davos. Someone as able and as loyal as you is hard to come by. Davos nods at this, glad that he decided to accept Arthur's offer many years ago. He doesn't know what Arthur saw in him, but it seems like he has absolute trust in him. Olenna Tyrell POV. As I am sitting on the Lord's chair, I can't help but be glad that I was born a woman. I have no need to go to war or prove myself as a warrior. I do not know what that little boy, Arthur Frey, is planning, but one thing is sure. He is acting recklessly, his actions erratic. One day he attacks and the next he decides to retreat. Though it was the correct action, how did he know? Is it his spies? Doubtful, after all, keeping up a spy network when he is in an unfamiliar ground is not as easy as it seems. Even the spider would have difficulty doing so. But what is most worrisome about him is his charisma. He can turn our own people against us. Every battle he has fought against the Reach, he has easily won. But why is even fighting against us at all? It is an illogical action. He is supposed to have gathered some wealth in Bravus as a merchant. Merchants are supposed to not anger anyone too much like he is doing with the Reach. Even if the stag sits down on the throne, our losses would be insignificant. That is until this green boy decided to make an enemy out of me. I have outlived many men smarter than him, and so I will outlive him too. Let's see how your story will end, little hawk. Tywin Lannister POV. I look at the map of Westeros in front of me, it is spread on the table and it shows all of the routes and territories. There are wooden carvings of wolves, stags, roses, dragons, etc. But I look at the new piece that I had added recently. A red hawk, that man. I wonder what is he even doing? He is terrorizing the Reach, completely destroying them in every single fight. I got news that he just retreated from the Reach when he had all of his troops already in Oldtown. He completely took over a city that has almost never been taken over in all of its years of existence. But truly, his actions might seem random, but he is definitely making every single right call in every situation. I can definitely see that he is definitely a military genius. Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, she might be good at politicking, but she has no idea in a man's job. She has no idea about war, troop morale, and such. For she is a woman and hasn't been in a war in all her life. The Reach would fall to its knees in front of the Red Hawk if they didn't have a large army. The man used his naval advantage and completely *D the Reach like a common whore. But it also shows his guts, when he is doing something like this. He is definitely sending it like a message to the undecided houses who are neutral. He is showing them what happens to even the strongest Targaryen supporters. I see now, so he isn't really among to keep the Reach occupied, he is more or less trying to lower the morale of the troops. He is definitely something. Well, this just makes my decision clearer then, I will sack King's Landing for the new stag who will sit on the throne. Suddenly I stop a little and come up to a conclusion. Is that little hawk just sending a message to me? Telling me to take action as he has the Reach occupied so I can go to King's Landing. I can't help but smile a little at this. This is smart of him. Knock. Knock. As I was thinking that, I heard a knock on the door. Come in. I immediately give them permission to enter. Immediately I see the old maester enter. I just nod at him, acknowledging his presence. He doesn't need any more respect, I already give him enough respect by not having him killed when he sends his little secret letters to the citadel. Maesters really are not just some old man scholars with balls dropping to the ground. They are the best information organization in the world, which has a monopoly over information. But they are not as smart as they think. I already have some men on the inside of the organization. I will put all of their heads on a pile if they even dare do something against House Lannister as they did to the Targaryens. Though the death of dragons happened only because of a small group of maesters that worked separately from the organization, I don't care, they better keep their maesters in check or I will burn their little citadel to the ground. There is a letter for you, my lord, says the old maester, as he hands me a letter. I take it from his hands and say to him, okay, you can go back to your room now, Maester Cullen. The old man nods and starts whimplingly walking away from here. I should have this one killed, that way I can get a new one. One that has forged his chain in warcraft and trade. That way it will be more useful than this junk of half-rotting old man. General POV. Next day the news spreads that Arthur Redhawes had obliterated the Reach fleet and is asking a lot of gold from the Reach in order to release them. At least these were the rumors going around. Some of the important lords will be ransomed off first before negotiations begin about some landed knights and such. And during this time on the island of Arbor, who was surrounded by 1,000 ships, making an impenetrable defense to the island. In Redwine Keep. Inside the dungeons, there is a middle-aged man in chains. He is Randall Tarley. He is a bald man with a short-cut beard. His only source of light is a small torch in the hallway in front of his cell, and the torch too is almost out of light. Now usually captured lords are treated good enough, but that is not the case with Arthur. He keeps every one of his prisoners in the same condition. Some other lords and some lord's son complained. They got their throats cut by the guards for that. So everyone here is now quiet, even though most of the people at this level are lords. No one is talking and it's deathly quiet. No one talks about escaping or anything like that. That is when suddenly some steps are heard, and then they all hear a voice say, well, hello, they're lords of the Reach. Immediately they all recognize who this is. It is Arthur as he walls around and continues saying, I am in a happy mood today. Your houses agreed to pay millions of gold dragons for your releases. Now that is amazing, so today you are getting an extra porridge meal. Don't worry, the Reach will send the food. After all, I have already made it clear that as soon as the Reach tries to close our supplies routes, the first one to starve will be you. Arthur looks around and when he sees that no one says anything he with a smile still on his face says, well, tough crowd. Anyway, on to the main business of today and why I came to this *T-hole. I mean the dungeons. Chapter 36, Fu *King the Reach. Arthur, MC, POV. I could see it in all their eyes, these men were humiliated due to their stay in the dungeons. I am okay with that, as it doesn't matter to me. What actually matters to me is that they might become unbroken by the time another war comes by. Of course, now that would be unfavorable to me. After all, if I want to put someone down, I would rather break them so much that they can never get up again. Sadly, if I did so I would only earn myself too much hate from the Reach. I want them to not like me, but not that much that it would cause them to act irrationally just to put me down. An irrational opponent to me is 10 times more dangerous than a rational one. I know just how unpleasant and unpredictable they can be. Someone like Tywin for example is easy to understand because I know what he wants and how far he is willing to go to get something like that. Anyway, I decided to give these helpless arrogant *TS some hope by saying, well, the real reason why I came here is that I have bad and good news. Well, more like bad news and slightly less bad news for some others of you. I see that no one says anything. Well, that is good, they are already broken enough that they don't seem to want to refute me. That is really good, now I just need to take that a step further. Well, as I said, the good news is that I have worked some deals with your houses. You guys' lives have been bought back by your house. But sadly, some houses disagreed with me, so I will have to put your heads in pikes around the coastal waters of the Reach. But at least the others will be released, and now comes the slightly bad news, and that is that you will only be released one by one and the more influential lords will be released in around 5 months. I explain their situation and it's not technically a lie either, and the reason why I allowed the low lords to return back home while the more influential lords stay back is in order to inspire some infighting. I mean everyone when they have something they want something more. It's basic human nature. Now the weaker lords would never dare raise their heads or it would get cut off. But that is what I offer to them all, go and backstab your lords and take their positions. I know that they will do it too, they won't be able to help themselves. Anyway, now I will have to try and build some plots and get some allies in here while I can. I will have to try and find the most insecure lords and whisper to them about promises of glory and wealth. I will also babble on some more about destiny and such. About how they could build their legacy like the Tyrells did, opening the doors to a castle that wasn't theirs to open. General POV. And so just like the wind, 5 months pass by and many things happen. First and foremost, the Reach lords have all been returned home. They expected to return back to their wives and flowery gardens, but sadly what they returned to was rumors of their wives' infidelities and some of them even had children while their husbands were away. Of course, the wives were truly cheating. It's just that the moon tea that stops pregnancies can be very easy to change with a different substance. And a stealthy bird can do that too, especially an intelligent bird. So while half of the Reach Lords were shamed and also took all of their bent-up anger on their wives, the other half was having to deal with up-jumped small lords trying to overtake their land. It was complete chaos and Olenna was trying her best to keep it under control, but sadly for her, she is experienced in only how to play the games and will never understand the irrational mindset of a man when his wife has laid with another man and so on. Arthur, MC, POV. I am currently in my personal room and on the table, a very detailed map of Westeros laid in front of me. I even had different wooden figurines carved about the different houses and parties. I try to use this and try to predict my enemy's next movement. The Reach has been crippled for the rest of the war and they are no longer a factor in it. Olenna can barely hold her lands together with her buffoon of a son only making things harder. Though she is doing a very good job at literally stopping a rebellion on her hands. Anyway, soon the Battle of the Trident should happen. Both sides have gathered as much as they can and Tully has already got both of his daughters married. I also kept sending the rebellion supplies and kept the Reach's 100,000 soldiers at bay with my only 35,000. Now the Reach might want to debate the numbers here and that their army was divided and all that. But sadly for them, I have been the winner in every single one of our exchanges against each other. I already got their best commander, Tarly, captured and for the 5 months that he was under my imprisonment I did what I liked to my enemies. I foo*ked them. I foo*ked them so hard that nowadays the Reach's army can barely walk. They are completely demoralized. Anyway, I don't plan to participate in the Battle of the Trident. I will just be busy, well more like foo*king some servant girl or the wife of the Red Wine Lord. I could put a couple of children inside of her, that would be a good addition to the Reach's chaos. I don't care what the people say, after all, if I try to be liked, I will end up as the most liked dead man in town. I don't need to be liked by some two-bit inbreed lord. Also, I will need to prepare my own things for the end of Robert's rebellion. General POV. The Mad King was currently in his solar, looking filthy and mad, as always. But he now understands just how dangerous this rebellion truly is, it could spell the end of the Targaryen dynasty. He was mad, but even he understood what this meant. He would be tortured and killed brutally. No. I will never die. I will simply be reborn as a dragon. Screamed the Mad King at one of the shadows in the room. He never understood what this even meant, he could swear that he heard the shadows whisper to him. He looked around and for a split second his eyes gained clarity, immediately they were filled full of despair as if he already knew what would happen. But that only lasted for a split second as the voices came back to his head and whispered. You will die. I have seen it. For you shall die running away from your throne. Just like a coward king. Never. Screamed Aerys to Targaryen. As we can see Aerys truly does hear whispers from the shadows. Whether they are inside his head because of the extensive Targaryen inbreeding or other reasons, who can say? P.S. The MC didn't literally foo*k someone okay. It is just him saying it that way, it expresses that he doesn't fight honorably and never will. He will cripple and hit his enemies where it hurts the most. Chapter 37, Battle of the Trident. But while the Mad King was hearing whispers from shadows, Robert Baratheon had just left Stony September for Riverrun, where Lords Jon Arryn and Eddard Stark married the daughters of Lord Hoster Tully. As he left Jon and Ned with their new wives he couldn't help but contemplate the future of this rebellion. He knew that he couldn't just bash the Targaryens and then expect to go back to being another lord. He remembers what Jon Arryn, his father figure, said to him. I either become a king or a dead man. Thinks Robert, he knows just how dangerous this situation is. Just wait for me, Lyanna. I will bring you back to my side. Just as it was meant to be, and I know what must be done. With that resolve, 3 days later Robert Baratheon announced his claim for the Iron Throne. That is when he led the combined Arryn, Baratheon, Stark, and Tully host of rebels. They decided that the battle would happen at the Trident, due to the royal troops being estimated to have a slightly larger number than theirs. The rebels plan to use strategic warfare. Also, their army is bloodied so they also have that advantage against the royalists. On the other side of the coin, Aerys' heir, Crown Prince Rhaegar Targaryen, returned from Dorne to take command of the royalist army. He was just done putting a child inside Lyanna's belly. He looks around himself and sees the army that the Kingsguard had gathered for him. An army 40,000 strong. Though they are currently in war and in the middle of a rebellion, Rhaegar is completely calm and collected, he knows that he will win this battle. It's simple why he will win, it is his destiny, he has created the dragon with 3 heads, and the one who will save the world will be amongst them. King Aerys gracelessly reminded the Martells that Princess Elia was in his power and dispatched her uncle, Prince Luwin Martell of the King's Guard, to assume command of 10,000 Dornishmen marching up the King's Road, and joined them to Rhaegar's royalist army en route to the Trident. At the same time, Sir Barry Stan Selmy and Sir Jonathor Derry of the King's Guard were sent to rally the scattered forces of Lord Connington. Additionally, Rhaegar persuaded his father to ask for help from his old hand of the king, Lord Tywin Lannister. Led by the loyalist lords Mace Tyrell and Pakester Redwyne, the Redwyne fleet and most levies from the Reach were at the siege of Storm's End. Some of Mace's men joined Rhaegar's host, however. Arthur, MC, POV. I look at the bodies of the two women in my bed. One of them is the Redwyne lady, the other is some pretty, ex-virgin, village, girl. As I look at their bodies I can't help but contemplate the goings around Westeros. I can't say how this will go from now on. The Battle of the Trident is happening and I am half the Westeros away from it. A very good distance in case Rhaegar wins his bout against Robert. Trying to predict something in a battle is unreasonable. One stone left bad in the river and Robert could slip and Rhaegar would win. This is the truth of battle, even I can only interfere so much with my birds. But it doesn't matter anyway, if Roberts dies, I am running as far away from here as I can. I have been *king the royalist forces left and right. Also, I have been supplying the rebellion, so yet. Definitely not a good idea to stick around in a place with the Mad King. Rather I will just go back to Essos and bide my time. I will come back a decade or two later with a different identity, and an army to take over Westeros. I will just acclaim myself as a Blackfyre from the female line and start a rebellion. They wouldn't be able to prove me wrong, that is for sure. People think that men will fight for the true king, a lot of bullshit *T that one. They will fight for gold, glory, and lordships, I can give them all of that. Me ruling the Seven Kingdoms will be the best option for everyone involved. I have a type of immortality now, and I don't want to spend it *sting on a bucket for another 1,000 years. I have my little raven looking at the Battle of the Trident, I will be first to get the news of who won. I will also know if I should escape or double down. As I get up from the bed naked as the day I was born. I don't mind it though as I just go and grab some water. This world has proven to not be that entertaining. It's more along the lines of terrifying, one day I could be captured and tormented. If I am broken mentally, it doesn't matter if I am reborn into one of my children or not. As I feel the water running down my throat and the warm sensation to it I can't help but be annoyed by it. Freezers don't exist in this world, so no ice cream, cold drinks, or anything like that. True, I could let some drinks in a cold part of the castle, but by the time they got here they would warp up once again. The inconveniences of the Middle Ages are truly annoying. No wonder people keep wanting to betray or something like that. It's because they don't have anything else to look forward to. They don't have a movie to enjoy themselves or anything like that. Their only pleasures are *x, food, and having people bow before you. A SHTTY place builds SHTTY people. Still, I will keep playing this Game of Thrones and once I win, I will just kick this world out of their thousands of years of stagnation. It doesn't take long for news of the Battle of the Trident to reach me. Now whether the news reached me or the spider first, it's unknown. But as I get the vision from my raven, I can see a heavily injured Robert, and a dead Rhaegar. I feel a sense of relief wash over me at that. This is the outcome that I desired most, and thankfully the soft gem armor that was made by a blacksmith in King's Landing wasn't that well built. Well, I heavily bribed the blacksmith who has now moved to Bravos. I will slit his throat soon, a secret between two men can only be kept if one is dead. Plus people slip down the stairs and drown all the time. Especially my enemies in Bravos, they always seem to suffer misfortune accidents. Seems like I will need to meet up with my dear friend Robert. I put a lot into this war, I ain't just gonna go become a poorer man than I came in here. Wars cost money and I had to pay all of these sellswords and mercenaries. General POV. At the same time in King's Landing, the Mad King gets the news of his son's defeat and death. He immediately sends his second son Viserys and his pregnant queen to Dragonstone. Chapter 38, Weak men are treated like dogs by the strong. Warning, some of the MC's actions are unsavory in this chapter. After the Battle of the Trident, I flew *K Lady Redwyne one last time on the balcony. I made sure to have some servants accidentally hear her moans. So the rumors will start flowing now. I wanted to put a child inside of her, but she kept drinking moon tea. Which is a shame, but I didn't force her to not drink it neither. In the end, I set sail and withdrew all of my troops from the Arbor Island. Seeing hundreds of my ships sailing along the sea makes me almost feel invincible. I contemplate just going to King's Landing and taking over the Iron Throne in one fellow swoop. But that is just my greed speaking, I know that I would have to forfeit this life if I did that. Sigh. Why can't things just be that simple? Sadly now I have to go through all of this trouble. But this is life, nothing is so simple. I have to set the stage and play my cards right. Almost 2 weeks later and my navy has split in two. I have gone with one on Maiden Pool, the other fleet has surrounded King's Landing. I know that the Queen and her children have already escaped, but I am only doing this to act like I am trying to keep any Targaryens from escaping. Anyway, as I step into Maiden Pool, I don't ask questions and immediately take over the place. My army of 20,000 easily takes it over. Especially since their men are at war and only a couple hundred. I easily take it over. General POV. The Lord of House Maiden, William Maiden, was cowering in his ancestral seat. He looked at the two guards around him. They have the Red Hawk sigil in their armor. He knows what this means. He thought that he would pass this war quietly. He had sided with the Mad King because he thought that the Targaryen dynasty wouldn't fall so quickly. It has had countless Mad Kinds already and during none of them did the dynasty fall. He took what he thought was the safe choice. He even stayed in his castle due to bad health as his men went and fought. But of course, Arthur Redhawk had to come and ruin it. Ponders William as he looks at his daughter and a couple of his sons. He can't help it, he has thought countless times of his he will try to save his own life. He looks at his red-haired daughter, with her beautiful blue ocean-like eyes. She was beautiful and a virgin. William planned to use her beauty to form a marriage alliance with some strong houses. Maybe one of the Reach houses. He has spoken with Tarly on the topic of marriage between their children. Still, he will have to offer his daughter to Arthur Redhawk. He knows that she will most likely be our *ped anyway. Beauty can be a curse sometimes. So better offer her and try to get some deal working with Redhawk so he won't kill him and the rest of his family. Plus she is already 19, well on her age to be married. Arthur comes in a couple of minutes later. He loudly slams the door open and enters the place like he owns it. Every person in the room unconsciously looks at him. Well, look what we have here, says Arthur with an excited smile on his face. Truly saddening, seeing a coward lord crawling before me would be fun. Lord Maiden is scared *+ once he hears that. After all, he knows that if Arthur decides to humiliate him, then there is nothing he can do. This will haunt his family for generations if Arthur decides to do that. But suddenly Arthur says loudly, startling everyone in the room. Even his own guards. I am sure that we can come to an arrangement. I have been very lonely on the seas recently. So have my men. I am sure that you can offer us some accommodations. As Arthur says that, Lord Maiden immediately takes this chance to blubber out words to please Arthur. Oh, of course, my great lord. We will take care of that. As he says that, Arthur nods and a glance goes towards Lady Motuin and the daughter. A threesome would be nice. Ponders Arthur. He has plenty of whores in his ships, unlike what he told Lord Maiden, but he doesn't touch any of them. His men have had their way with them more times than he could count. Who knows what types of diseases have developed in that unwashed cesspool. Arthur isn't that afraid of death now due to his immortality, but that doesn't mean that he will seek death. Especially an STD type of death. Better take this coward's wife and daughter. Since he is such a weak man, he should know what to do in front of men stronger than him. Concludes Arthur as he just gives his guards some orders. They will rest for 2 days before marching again. Later on, in his new private room where he will rest, Arthur is sitting on his bed. He is currently waiting for a couple of people. Creak. Suddenly the door is opened and the beautiful red-haired and blue-eyed daughter of Lord Maiden comes in. Arthur smirks at this a little. He can also see that she is nervous and even shaking a little. Well, girl, be a dear and go and call over your mother too, says Arthur, his smile still on his face. The girl's shaking stops immediately and he looks at Arthur with a terrified look in her eyes. She has already guessed what he is thinking, so she gets close to Arthur and stutters. My lord, am I not enough for you? Arthur sighs at this and rubs his eyes in annoyance. Listen, little girl, just go and get your mother. Didn't your father not teach you to not ask questions too much? Be a good pretty noble girl and go get your mother too. But I said go and get your mother in here too. Yells Arthur. The girl listens and goes away. Arthur sighs one more and he leans back on his new soft bed. Sheesh, if she didn't have such a weak father I wouldn't be trying this *T. Also, I always wanted to try a threesome with a mother and daughter. I don't care about their opinions right now. Plus this is medieval times, this is the only time I can do something like this with no law or anything like that. He plans to advance this world soon. So he won't be able to do this *T anymore. A couple of minutes later the coward Lord Maiden comes with his daughter. The guards outside of the door stopped him first. I just want to talk to Lord Redhawk about something. Please let me in. Begs the Lord. When Arthur hears his whining he orders the guards. Let him in. Arthur gets up and the Lord Motuin comes inside the room. He is unarmed and has his daughter behind him. Arthur gives the daughter a look that immediately makes her cower. My lord, I must. Pow. Arthur doesn't even let the man talk as he punches him in the ground. He kicks his head and bangs it on the grounds. Listen here you weak little SHT, be glad that I am not having you watch while I fouquet your wife. So how about you go and bring her here, and do it quickly. Because if your wife doesn't have her lips around my cock in 10 minutes, I am putting all of your heads in spikes. Says Arthur menacingly. He then crouches down and grabs the lord by the hair. Also listen here again, weak man. Question me once more and I will cut your cock off, understand me? Lord Mouden has a face full of blood as he nods. Arthur pulls him up by the hair and says, well, go and call your wife, bring her here. I will get your daughter ready for the main feast while we wait. The man shakingly nods as he runs away. Arthur looks at the girl and gets close to her, but she immediately starts crying. As he sees that, he just says to her with a tender voice, oh no, 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 there is no need to cry, dear. Someone has got to pop your cherry. It better be me than some guy you don't even know. Yeah, this MC is the worst and he is very lustful. But he is in a medieval world, so it's not against the law. Lord Mouden is a coward and that is all that there is to it. He won't be long for this world either. Arthur might want to satiate his lust, but he still has a clear head that letting a man live after humiliating him isn't a good idea. P.S. Yes, this story will be quite dark and the MC will do quite a bit of awful stuff. This is the warning. Because as we see, this MC was already way worse of a person before he even came to this world. The God world brought out even the worst in him. Here he is no longer bothered by pesky things like laws and such. Chapter 39, A Dynasty Falls, and Another Raises. Arthur POV. 2 days have passed since I came to this place. The threesomes were honestly amazing, the daughter's cries and the begging were kinda off-putting. But she got used to it fast, and seeing her mother riding me, and having her mother look at her while I took her virginity and mounted her. Sadly today I will have to set off. This was a nice time I spent with them. Lord Mouden had an accident sadly. Hopefully, though, he left a child with Lady Mouden. I made sure to try hard to honor the Lord while I ked his wife. I am sure that she will be with a child soon, so I did get another spawn point, which is a lord this time. Trash like Mouden having any power is a shame. Trusting a coward with power is not something I would have done. General POV. Arthur and his army set off to go towards the Trident, where an injured Robert is laying on his bed. But even though he was alive, there was a fire in his eyes. He replayed the scene of killing the rigger countless times in his head. It was the only thing giving him any real solace to his worries, as his best friend had embarked for King's Landing. The war has all but been won now. The undecided lords have run to Robert's side. Some even defected from the royal army to join the rebels. Of course, as Arthur arrived at Robert's camp with his full army behind him, while Robert didn't even have half the ready-to-fight men that Arthur had. What was left behind were mostly the injured and some now crippled. Of course, Arthur didn't want to fight against Robert or anything like that. He simply just made a power move and told the lords that he is the one with the power in this soon-to-be negotiations. Jon Arryn was the one to represent Robert, as the man didn't want to do something like negotiation. Of course, Jon Arryn said that Robert was unable to attend the meeting. Of course, that was a bowl of crap, but flowery words like this needed to be said. Also, Jon knows just how tremendous Arthur's contribution to this has been. From his point of view, Arthur is the reason they won the war. He kept 100,000 Reachman soldiers occupied with his only 35,000 men. Jon Arryn knew nothing that the Reach would have just remained inactive during the war anyway and just lay siege to Storm's End. The Reach might have placed its bets on the Targaryens, but they still made sure that in case Robert wins, they won't suffer any losses. Sadly for them, Arthur couldn't allow that to happen. The Reach was a flowery place, so gossip flowed about a lot. He took advantage of that and pulled every dirty trick in the book to try and keep them at bay. His magic also helped him tremendously, not with its raw power, but mostly with its versatility. In the meeting tent, Arthur stood on one side and Jon Arryn on the other. So, we both know how much I spent on this war, says Arthur, emphasizing his losses as his face morphs into a grimace. This makes Jon Arryn think that the expenses were more than he knew of. Of course, Arthur didn't truly lose any money from this war. Who paid for it? The Reach did. He robbed them blind, and even after that he robbed them once more by holding the lords and high lords hostage. He has some money left over from those exchanges still. We understand that Lord Redhawk's expenses must have been massive. We are willing to compensate you to the best of our abilities, says Jon Arryn with a polite, but at the same time resolute tone on his voice. Arthur smiles at this slightly and leans forward on the negation table. He pulls out a map of Westeros and points at a place northeast of King's Landing. I want Crack Claw Point and all its lands in attendance. That also includes Crack Claw Isle. Jon Arryn looks at the map and thinks of the lords who own that area. Most of them are dead as to Crack Claw being in the Crownlands. They answer directly to the king. This time though they had the bad luck of having a mad one as their leader. Okay, it's done, says Jon Arryn. Sure, some of the people were bound to be unhappy about this decision. But none of them matter in the grand scheme of things. Jon knows that Arthur is an invaluable ally to have. Arthur on the other hand was slightly surprised that the negotiation was done too fast. I guess expecting someone born into a leadership position to be good at it is unrecognizable. Contemplates Arthur, and he is right. Jon Arryn is a man of honor and doesn't like to beat around the bush to find the answer. Lords like him take a sliver of pride at not knowing how merchants do their work, as they consider it money grubbing and it being below them. Glad we could come to an understanding, Lord Arryn, says Arthur as he gets up from his chair and walks away with a smile. I will be going to ask Robert how it felt to cave in the prickly prince's chest. Arthur then is guided to the tent where an injured Robert lies. He smiles slightly as he sees the giant of a man, Robert, lying down on a bed with bandages all over his chest and abdomen. Robert looks at Arthur and smiles in recognition. He wants to call out to him but he stops. Arthur immediately understands what the problem is. He still doesn't remember my name. This fat foo *k. Though he thinks that, on the outside, Arthur is all smiles. Well, seems like you killed the prince. Guess he wasn't as good at killing men as he was at kidnapping defenseless women. Good thing you have your good old friend Arthur taking care of the Reach for you. Bah ha 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 ha. Robert laughs out loud at that. I didn't believe my ears when I heard it. 100,000 men against 35,000. Almost 3 times your difference. How the hell did you do it, you goddamn genius? Ha 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 ha. Laughs Arthur, as if he just heard the funniest joke. He sits on a chair next to Robert's bed and says, honestly, it was easier than I thought and easier than they make it seem. The cold in the north makes strong people, the flowers in the south make goddamn flowery people. Better at waving flowers than swinging a sword. Ha 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 ha. Robert smiles once more. He takes a goblet of wine from next to his bed and drinks it. Some of it spills to his chest as he takes big gulps from it. Wah! He finally stops drinking as his eyes turn reminiscent. You should have seen it, just one mighty hammer strike to the chest, and the man was down for the count. Caved in his breastplate and probably caved in every rib he had. Arthur smiles at that. I would pay 1,000,000 gold dragons to see that effing prickly prince falling on his ass and dying as he shts himself. While Arthur was talking with Robert, Ned was riding for the capital. While Tywin was already there, the old lion knows that if he wants something big in return for this war, he needs to do something drastic. Something that will please the new king. On the Mad King's chambers, on the other hand, there was a completely different discussion. Varys looks at the Mad King with worry as Maester Pycelle tries to convince the Mad King to open the gates. So this is it now. Ponders Varys. Seems like the realm got another war, for another king. The news must reach the Targaryen dynasty has fallen after almost 300 years in power. The children must escape. I should try to save Elijah's children, that will be a difficult task, but not impossible. Open the gates and let my old friend Tywin and his army into the city. Orders the Mad King. The council just nods. Everyone already knows what is going to happen next. Chapter 40, London City. While the Mad King was ordering his men to open the gates, Varys has other plans. One of his spies sneaks into Princess Elia's room and a man in a brown cloak exchanges the babies. He then immediately uses a secret passage in the room to run away. Among the secret tunnels, the man is surrounded by darkness. He can hear the yells and shouts above him, but he never says anything. He hears the war happening above him and his hands shake slightly in nervousness. He knows just how he will be brutalized if he is found. Thankfully he has already given the infant in his arms a small dose of nightshade. He won't be waking up for some hour now. Finally, he reaches the end of the tunnel and sees light. He can finally breathe a sigh of relief at this. What Lord Varys said was correct. Everything will be in place from now on. He walks outside and he looks around. He can still hear the sound of battle and smoke coming from the city. But the man doesn't look back. He looks around and sees a small boat with sails and every essential within it. The man sighs in relief. He gets on the boat and sees within it. He sees some food, a place that looks like a box with glass on top. He can leave the baby there as he notices that the box has some breathing holes. As he opens the box he sees a note inside. But he doesn't pay attention to any of that. What he is more concentrated on getting out of here. Any moment now, a soldier could come by and kill him. So he pushes the boat out of the shore and sets sail. He looks at the chaotic city of King's Landing and sighs. One day, the Targaryen dynasty will return to where it belongs. Once more, years of prosperity and peace for the 7 kingdoms. As the man says that, he gets further and further away from the city, until he can't even see it anymore. He looks at the royal infant and sees that he is still sleeping. You will be king one day, says the man out loud. He then takes a hold of the sails and goes towards Gulltown. That way he can board a ship big enough to take him to Essos. Sadly he won't be, says an emotionless voice. The man in the brown cloak feels something pierce his spine. He winces at this and is about to turn around, but another dozen stabs on his back and they put him out of commission. Splash! He is then thrown to the sea. The killer wears a dark cloak. He approaches the infant, opens his box, and stabs the infant. Once in the chest and once in the eye. He is uncaring for any of this as he throws the baby in the ocean too. A man is sorry for killing you, young one. But the God of many faces shall be merciful to ones whose soul is pure. A red hawk in the sky looks at the man below him, and once it sees what happened, it flies away. And so the rebellion ends in all but name. Later on in the year, Stannis captured Dragonstone too, but the queen of the Mad King, together with Viserys and Daenerys Targaryen, had escaped from the place far before he even came there. Robert was mad at this, so he gifted Dragonstone to Stannis and had his younger brother, Renly, take over Storm's End. The Seven Kingdoms were at peace once again. Eddard Stark also gets a true-born son and a bastard that he brings home, much to his wife's shame. But during this year, something amazing happened too. Carclaw Point was all given to a man with astonishing achievements during the rebellion. Arthur Redhawk, a very controversial man. It is said that the deeds he did in the Reach were unspeakable. But that didn't matter at all. As to Arthur, Carclaw Point was a strategic location. He built a couple of keeps with castles in them. Lord Davos Seaworth was given his small keep by the sea. Arthur took the castle that he had built by using thousands of workers whom he paid himself personally to build his castle. Even a city was built around it. It was called London City, or otherwise known as the City of Opportunity. The citizens in it were all given education, and the Lord would pay for your tuition if you give your word to work for the Redhawk family for the rest of his life. Hundreds of thousands of people moved within the city in only a year. Some even came from Essos, merchants, carpenters, and many more businesses were opened along the city. The taxes were a little high, but not too high either, as its citizens were able to flourish. The prince, Joffrey Baratheon, is also born, to which the people rejoice, the king finally having an heir. During this time, a small council meeting was being held. Varys, Pycelle, Stannis, Jon Arryn, and some other people were sitting in the room. Except for the king, he was in another one of his hunts. "What are the new transpirings in the kingdom?" asks Jon Arryn as he looks at Varys for an answer. "Well, my lord," says Varys in a low voice, almost as if it is a whisper. "It seems like the Reach has lowered their food prices once more, trying to outbid Lord Redhawk. But it seems like the latter used his connections to buy all of their food under a different name and then sell them all over Essos at a higher price. Very intelligent, that Lord Redhawk," says Pycelle, sounding old like always, as if it's a miracle that he is even alive. "Truly a brilliant strategy." Jon Arryn nods at that. Though the Reach has been trying to snuff Arthur, he has only grown stronger. The king has also requested a tourney for Joffrey's birth. "Master of Coin, have you made the preparations?" A fat man who seemed to be dozing off opens his eyes and looks around. "Why, yes, my lord had. Everything is in place." A week later, and in London City, within the castle in the middle, Arthur opens a letter as he sits on his desk. The letter is a flowery invitation from the king. "So that trash is born," thinks Arthur. He had wondered whether Cersei should have a stillbirth just to be sure. But he decided to go the other way. Joffrey is too useful alive. "Sigh, this is truly quite troublesome," says Arthur out loudly, thinking about something else. He is as rich as ever, and he has relocated his family here from Essos. Of course, his mistresses are known to the others. So are his children, the ones that Robert legitimized. Oliver will be the next in line to inherit everything Arthur has, at least from an outside point of view. He crumples the letter and leans back on the chair. He winces slightly as he does so. His back hurts. He opens a drawer and takes out a mirror. He looks into it and frowns, slight white hair and some wrinkles on the corner of his eyes. Normally he would dismiss such things, but not now. Damn, magic in this world sucks, ponders Arthur, his face filled with annoyance.